Evening at 7 o'clock, we'll get started. Let's stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So let's take attendance. We take an attendance?
So noted.
Okay. And then I'd need a motion to approve or...
I would move to approve the minutes of the September 9th, 2025 meeting.
Support. So I have a motion and support. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The minutes are approved. So as a brief introduction, the Zoning Board of Appeals is a 7-member quasi-judicial body appointed by the Bloomfield Township Board of Trustees per the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act. Matters pending before the Zoning Board of Appeals are decided on a case-by-case basis. Any appeal of a decision made by the Zoning Board of Appeals is subject to circuit court review. Tonight's meeting will consider one case. All persons wishing to comment will be asked to provide their name and address at the podium. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per individual speaker. If you are speaking on behalf of a recognized group, you may speak for up to 5 minutes. Please address your comments to the board and not the applicant or other members of the public. We're going to need everyone's help tonight to make this a good meeting so that the board can make the best possible decision based on the best information. A little more detail on the procedure. The applicant is going to go first, and they're going to present to the board. The board is going to then ask questions. I'm going to open the public hearing then, and then I'm going to find out who's representing groups and who'd like to speak. When you address your comments, you're addressing it to the board and not to the applicant. You can ask questions of the applicant, but that you should make those during your comments and not to the applicant. Once I close the public hearing, that is it. There's no further comment from the public, and then the applicant is going to get up and provide a response to the feedback provided during the public comment. The board is then going to discuss the request tonight, and we'll vote. As we said, the applicant needs 4 votes of the board members here to get the requested variances. Some expectations tonight. Please be respectful, both while everyone's speaking, and that kind of includes being respectful as an audience. So in other situations like this, there's sometimes feedback from people that are not speaking, and that's not helpful to us. It's also helpful if you organize your thoughts in advance, particularly because we have a 3-minute time limit. So we want to get your feedback. I know there's been a lot of energy in the community around this request, and we'd like to hear you, but it's okay if you say, I agree with everything that I've heard, and I have this additional information that I'd like to share. So let's have a great meeting with that. Let's call the first item.
There are 7 available seats here in the front row. If members of the community need a place to sit, there's 7 seats right up here.
So just to give you some background, in our packet, we've got all of the design review board minutes from June the 8th, 2025, which has quite a bit of detail in it, really great note-taking. We have all the Planning Commission meeting minutes from July the 7th, 2025. And then several members of the board, we've reviewed our strategic plan, our master plan, the one-family residential cluster option. Several of the board members have driven down Glengarry Drive and Cedarbrook Drive in order to familiarize ourselves with the site. So we do have a lot of information. I can appreciate the amount of time that's gone into getting to this point and the other meetings that you've attended. What's that? And we've also gotten feedback from residents. There are emails in our packet from 3 individuals. We've seen a couple of the flyers. I've actually also gone on the Facebook page that was formed in order to gather the community feedback. So with that background, please proceed.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Members of the board, I'm Tim Loughran. I'm the Vice President of Land Acquisition for Robertson Homes. Actually, I have a contingency from Robertson Homes here. Our office is not too far, so it's kind of easy to get there. But we got Paul Robertson, who's our chairman. We've got Jim Clark, our CEO. We've got Darian Newbecker, who's our president. We're celebrating our 80th year, which I think is really impressive. And we're based in Bloomfield Township. We're based right on Telegraph Road. In fact, basically across the street from the site. And I think that's important for many reasons. It shows you that we believe in community building. It shows you that we do the fair thing. And we've actually built a lot of communities in the township over the years, and most recently, our villas of Bloomfield Grove on Losser, just south of Square Lake, which was the old Hickory Grove Elementary, which this board actually saw us in 2018. So obviously very familiar with the area. We feel like we're a steward of the community. What we learned at the villas of Bloomfield Grove was very important. We learned that the price point was really too high for what the meat of the market was. So our development there, most of the homes are going over $2 million, which obviously is very expensive. And we feel that the type of product is perfect for the community. It's a age-targeted ranch-style condominium community. But really that price point was just really too high to capture, I think, what you would want to see in your community for options. So the site across the street we think is perfect for that type of community at a more reasonable, more attainable price point. I do want to spend a little bit of time discussing the project. I know you're somewhat familiar with it. I know a lot of people here are familiar with it as well, but I do want to go through it a little bit and then detail the reasons for the variance request tonight. So again, thank you, and if we can get started. So you can see from the site context, this is 14 Mile on the south, Telegraph, obviously right in the middle there. And what this shows is there's really a lot of mix of surrounding land uses. You see in red, multifamily apartments there, condos, there's quite a bit of that. That purple that shows office, that's actually where our office building is. We've been there 30-plus years, so very familiar, obviously, with the area. You've got, of course, Temple Bethel. Temple Bethel is one of the sellers of the property, just to the south of us. So you can see it's really a mix of uses and intensities. And all along Telegraph, you're going to see a lot of intensity and density, and as it fades to single family. And as I mentioned, we're purchasing not only from the Temple, but also another individual property owner there. So there's 3 parcels that make up the property. So I'm going to touch on a few things on the site plan because I think it's relevant to tonight's discussion. A few things to mention. I think the first thing that I really want to point out is the double row of plantings along the northern and western perimeters where we have existing single family. That's very important. That has really evolved over time. In fact, this whole project really has evolved over the last year that we've been meeting with the neighbors, meeting with the meetings we've had here at the township. And that double row of plantings will also they'll be upsized trees. They'll be a minimum of 14 feet, which is about almost twice as high as what we normally would plant. And I think that's important because it provides more of an immediate buffer from the get-go. And then also what you'll notice is the setbacks. So the homes, and I'll get into this in a minute, those homes are 55 feet, proposed 55 feet away from the property line, whereas the existing R1 zoning district is 35 feet. So I think that's important. Everything we're really doing tonight is because we're trying to buffer from our neighbors, and I'll go through that point by point. So rather than 35 feet, we're proposing 55 foot plus that double row of plantings with 14-foot trees. The other thing I think you'll notice is the amount of open space. All that green adds up to about 57% of the site. That is very unique in the fact that we are able to provide so much open space. And really what's important about that is that open space will be there forever. And the reason why I'm saying that is because when somebody buys a detached condominium from us, they're buying basically the house itself and the area for the deck. Everything else is common, general common element open space, which means the HOA is responsible for maintaining that. You can't put a swimming pool in the backyard. You can't put a tot lot or playground. That all is part of the HOA, which is bound by master deed. The other thing I think we should focus on is the impact from Telegraph Road. That is quite a busy road. Everybody knows that. I drive it twice a day, every single day, for the past 11 years. There's going to be impact to any development that will be on the site. We are proposing a gate. We're proposing an 8-foot berm, which is something that we've been able to add as well to Telegraph. But that being said, we're still heavily impacted by Telegraph Road. We've had to kind of work through those things as we've gone on. We do have preliminary approval from MDOT for the single access that you see there. So we've already worked with MDOT on that, and there's no issues from a capacity or turning perspective. The other thing I do want to point out is the storm pond at the southeast corner of the site. That is oversized by 20 to 25% over what a normal storm pond would be. I'll get into the reasons for that, but it's essentially because this area has kind of acted as a detention pond for much of the area over decades. So that's part of the plan to continue to take that additional storm from the area. And then the one thing I do want to point out is these are single-story homes. So the massing of it will be much less than what a normal neighborhood would be, or that would be 2 stories. These would be, essentially no more than about, I think, 16 to 17 feet at the midpoint. And again, from a single-story perspective, 55 feet off, much different than a 35-foot setback with a 2-story, which is actually permitted in R1. So we're trying our best to provide a buffer to the neighbors there. Next slide. This is what we call a parallel plan. This is a plan, and it's hard to see, but it's a black and white. That is essentially a plan that meets all of your dimensional ordinances. As you'll see, what this really leads to is wide blocks of attached homes, which is not very pleasant to see. The home buyers, this is very undesirable for our home buyers, especially at price points that you need to get really because of the marketplace. Everything is just too expensive to build these days. So it's very important to have a detached plan as we're proposing on the left. But not only is it undesirable for the home buyers, it's also it creates a massive structure from the neighbors. So by spreading them out rather than having them combined into these massive blocks, that's obviously much better for the neighbors. And I do want to point out that this is the same number of units, the left and the right. So what we're proposing is 38 units. It's 38 units on the right side as well, which is the conforming parallel plan. This is the product. It's similar to what we built at Village of Bloomfield Grove, although it's a little smaller. They're about 2,200 square feet, but they functionally are about the same, 2-bedroom with a den. This is what people want. We will have 1 floor plan, which sounds kind of crazy, but that is exactly what people want. We know we build more of these than anybody in Southeast Michigan. And this, we know that there'll be a lot of demand. We've already got people reaching out, and we haven't even put a sign up. But this is a very highly desirable product, as I'm sure you all can imagine. But again, it's a smaller plan than Village of Bloomfield Grove, and it is a better price point as well, which is very important. That's what we're trying to focus on here. So we've received so far approvals from 3 boards, township boards. That would be the Design Review Board, the Planning Commission, and the Wetlands Board. And in the past year, we've really tried to work with the neighbors. We've tried to have meetings. We've had basically meeting at our office. We've had them come in a couple of times to meet with us. And we've heard some concerns from the neighbors, and frankly, they're all legitimate concerns. They're all legitimate questions that we certainly need to discuss here. One of those we've heard is the capacity of the infrastructure. The reality is we've got approval from all reviewing agencies for the site, so there really is no question about capacity for the township's infrastructure. This site could be much more intense and have no issues from a capacity. So certainly the planning staff could talk to that, but that is a reality. We've also heard a lot about the high water table, and that is absolutely true. In some areas, there is a high water table. We've gone out there, we've done test pits. There's no question about it. But we've dealt with worse by far. And the fact that we're putting in sump leads that will then lead to a storm management system, that'll alleviate the issues. We have no concerns. We've had professionals look at this. We are very well-versed in developing sites like this. So that is, I know it's a concern that we've heard from the neighborhood, but that's not something that would be a challenge for us in development. The other thing we've heard is runoff. There's concerns about runoff, and this has proven not to be true. So at the Planning Commission, we had Brad Brickell from Noack and Frost is here tonight speak to the runoff question and really put it to bed. Essentially, we are at the low end, and I will show you some slides on that. We're on the low end of the entire neighborhood. Water doesn't go uphill. So essentially, the reason why there was wetlands on the site was because of all the water that's come from the neighborhood to the north. That's going to remain the same. The water can't get to theirs. Any water that's coming, we'll take. We're not allowed to even put any water on neighboring property. So that's not true, and every professional that has reviewed this and approved this will tell you the same. There is no runoff issue. So all I can speak to is what all the professionals say to that. And of course, Brad Brickell is more than happy to, I don't know if he's more than happy, but I know he's happy to come here and kind of speak to that as well, if that's something that's important to you to understand. The wetland permits, so we did get wetland permits approved from the board, the wetland board. I just want to point out that there were no Eagle-regulated wetlands on the site. They were only regulated by the township. The township's consultant had fully signed off on our plan for the wetland mitigation, which was basically oversizing the pond and turning it into essentially a wet pond and a wetland itself. And we received unanimous approval from the wetland board. So we've gone through that whole process of vetting out the wetlands. And the fact is, really, the wetlands were in very low quality, and historically, it was not a wetland. It was created over time from all the development around it. I know there are comments about the tree variance. The fact is, we're proposing 284 more trees than what's existing on the site today. And most of the trees are really, I'd say half of them are poor or fair at best, and they're really nuisance trees on the site. So that's just been, over decades, created there. It's not a forested wetland or forested woodland by any stretch. We have heard concerns about density. I understand that. I will say, as I pointed out, it is the same density as a conforming plan. Actually, it's less density than what the ordinances allow for building off of a major roadway.
So Tim,
Yeah.
on your parallel plan,
Sure.
I couldn't tell where it says the density, our cluster ordinance says that the density on that area increased beyond the initial 360 feet shall not exceed 1.7 dwelling units per acre. Are you saying?
That's a separate slide that I'll show you.
Okay.
That's more of a mathematical equation. This is actually what a parallel plan would be if we build a conforming plan.
Tim, are you saying that parallel plan was actually reviewed by the planning department and they could verify that you're meeting the ordinance requirements on that?
So what I'd said was it meets dimensional standards. It meets your setbacks, it meets your distance, your building separation, all of those types of standards.
So I
Is
asked.
that accurate?
Yeah, so I asked the staff, how many units could go on under our cluster ordinance?
Yeah.
So they can fit 12 in the front 365 feet. They can fit 24 units, I believe, or 26, sorry. In the remainder, they can fit 12. So I can't verify about setbacks or anything like that. I can just tell you that this parallel plan does not show the density the way the ordinance requires.
But it's possible they could get 38 units.
Yes.
Under a different configuration,
Okay.
they could
Yeah,
get
the
38.
only concern from planning staff on this parallel plan is the arrangement.
Yes, okay. It's not the number, it's maybe where they're placed.
And
Okay.
we've actually gone through previous projects that have come through the township. And they've actually discussed exactly what you're talking about, the 360 feet and then the additional after that at 1.7 units per acre. Those were all approved outside of the variance. Those were actually approved as part of the site plan. So, in fact, Bloomfield Chase, when that was done in the 90s, was exactly that. It did not have to get a variance for that. It was just part of their approvals for the site plan. But I do have a slide, and I can show you exactly what
Thank you.
Lori had mentioned before. But again, from getting back to the density, there is much more intense uses along Telegraph. 4-story office buildings, apartments, senior living. We're not proposing that. We're proposing 3 units per acre, which frankly is probably too little on a major thoroughfare. Typically, you don't see that. You see higher density. So from a density perspective, we think we're actually lower than what really could and probably should go there. But this is what our proposal is, and we think 3 units per acre along a major thoroughfare is completely appropriate. Fire access, we've heard. Project has been vetted by fire. They've approved the access. Telegraph Road. So Telegraph Road has come up a couple of times. Obviously, there's so much traffic on Telegraph. We're going to be creating an infinitesimal amount of additional traffic. Kyle Raymakers from Tetra Tech is here to speak if that's something that you want to discuss. But we've submitted a traffic study, and obviously we're not providing hardly anything as far as additional traffic. And Telegraph already has major issues. We know that. Something will be built here at some point in time. It's going to have more intensity than what we're showing. And in fact, we've got a lot of data that shows that this type of development, an age-targeted, move-down type of buyer, actually has 40% less traffic than a typical 2-story home, single-family home, colonial home. And that's proved out. It's pretty obvious. You only really have 2 people living in a home typically. You don't have kids. You're not going back and forth to soccer practice, that sort of thing. So it's about 40% less as far as impact on the road. So there really won't be any obviously impact to Telegraph Road as a result of this project. I do want to point out we have met numerous times with the neighbors, as I mentioned. We've made change after change to the plan. We've added to the setbacks. We've added to the buffers. We added the berm. There's a lot of things that we've done, and every time we're trying to work with them to make things better on the site. The Temple's actually rejected other offers to build on the site. So, people have come to them, senior living, apartments, that sort of thing. They want this because it creates security, it creates safety for them. That's very important. I know people, representatives from the Temple will speak to that. They feel like this is the best use of land. They are our future neighbors, and I think that's really important to point out. And really, not building anything is just not an option. Something will happen there. There are private property rights in this country. So really it comes down to what is the best use. And we feel like this is the least impactful use we can build. Really, a lot of the, if you can go to the next slide, a lot of the issue is the zoning ordinance is just, it just hasn't been updated in decades and decades. It's been at least 25 years that we can see that it has not addressed this type of housing, yet you have all this housing. So all of these projects have had to have some kind of approval to allow them to get past the zoning ordinance. We feel there's numerous justifications, and we'll go through all of those to what we're requesting tonight. But they really fall into 3 categories. They fall into the dimensional standards, which we'll start with, natural features, and then the permission requests, which are kind of standard catch-all for signage and entry signs, entry monumentation, that sort of thing. So we'll go through those. But again, the zoning ordinance just does not really accommodate true cluster-style housing, yet somehow you have it. And I'll show you how much you have. It's incredible. There's a lot on Telegraph. This is not a groundbreaking thing we're trying to do here. And none of those have everything, all the density up front and lower density in the back. That just is not how the township has operated. And they're great projects. You look at them, they're wonderful projects. And most of them have much closer setbacks than what we're proposing tonight. I can name a few: Bloomfield Chase, Hickory Grove Village, Woods of Lone Pine. Of course, our villa is at Bloomfield Grove, which in 2018 I went Jim Clark and I went in front of this board and received unanimous approval for. And in fact, those variances for Bloomfield Grove were actually, there were more of them than what we're proposing. They included rear setbacks. They included natural feature setback encroachments for units. We're not proposing anything like that. And if you recall, when we did come here for Bloomfield Grove, there was opposition then. You know, since we've created a really beautiful community, a very well-regarded community with no negative impacts to the neighborhood. In fact, we've actually improved drainage in that area considerably now that we have a detention pond. You probably have seen Losser really hasn't had any flooding like it did before. A lot of that is because of what our development was able to provide there. So in case of this development, in reality, the use has been vetted by multiple boards. We had DRB approval, Planning Commission approval, and the wetland boards, as I mentioned. Really, the only reason we're here is because the zoning ordinance just does not provide that flexibility that's needed for this type of project. Cluster development. So there are other communities that actually recognize the value of this type of product, and they've actually come to us and asked them to help them with their zoning ordinances to create ordinances that actually work with a cluster development. We've had a couple come to us for that, and we'd love to offer that as well. We've actually offered it to the township. The timing obviously wouldn't work here, but that's something that a lot of other communities, and I hate talking about other communities, but I think it is relevant. This is a need in your community. This type of housing, I think you can all understand is very needed in this community. So I'm just going to go quickly over some of the justification. We do think it's unique in both shape and location. We think that not having variances would be a less desirable outcome for stakeholders. I think that parallel plan would be less desirable, and I think there's many other options that would be far less desirable than a 3-unit per acre, high-quality detached condominium development. We're trying to maximize the buffer areas. That's really why we're here. Most of these variances are specifically to move things away between us and the adjacent properties. I think justification is it's a much-needed housing option. There are not many places you can do this in the township. In fact, if there were, we'd probably already be doing them. So it's a way to provide a housing need that you have in your community. Again, I've talked about this, but historically, it's always accepted stormwater from the adjacent properties. That has created a real challenge environmentally on the site that we're able to alleviate with the development, or we can address with the development. There's a significant amount of low-quality and invasive trees on the property, and we're going to, as I mentioned, we're going to provide more trees than what currently exists. And then, of course, Telegraph. All along Telegraph, we're probably going to be the least dense and least intense development on Telegraph. That's just a fact. Everything else is either what we're proposing, and those densities are actually higher than we're proposing, or it's something completely more intense. So I think that's a point that's really important to make, that Telegraph Road, just by nature, is suited for higher intensity development. And we think it's a logical and appropriate land use. We recognize there's single family behind us. That's why we're trying to come here and ask for the variances so we can provide these buffers to them. But we are a transitional use. We've got a church to the south of us. We've got a Telegraph and apartments to the east. We've got office to the north. Of course this is a transitional use. Of course it's a transitional. It doesn't make any sense to be single family homes is what it's zoned. And then lastly, it'll provide a much safer and more secure environment, which is very important to the seller. Next, please. So I'm going to go into detail further on each of these points, but it's hard to see this. I completely understand that. I know it's in your packets. Actually, the one behind you might be easier to read. But this really clearly shows the efforts.
We also have it here at our
Oh,
computer.
perfect.
So.
Well, that's even better. But clearly, it shows the efforts we're trying to pull. We're trying to pull those units away from the perimeters. If you can see kind of the front of the units, you can see that shaded area. Those are the front setback variances. If we did not receive those, we would have to push those further to the north and further to the west, and we get closer to the neighborhood. That specifically is so we can provide a buffer. The ones that are along the storm pond, that storm pond's 20% larger, 20 to 25% larger because of all the additional stormwater we're taking on. So, all of these that I'm talking about are dealing with basically from the externalities of the site in general and trying to make it better for the neighborhood. The natural feature requests are really a result of having this enlarged storm pond. So we're going to talk about the encroachment onto natural feature setbacks. That's really because that pond is a lot larger, as I'm just kind of talking about here. So I'll get into all of these now, if that's okay. The next slide. So the first one I want to talk about is the front yard setback. The front yard setback, it's in the requirement, it's 40 feet to the right-of-way. Now, that's really for a more traditional colonial style type of development. That's not a cluster. Cluster by nature is not a 40-foot setback. And that's actually measured from a 60-foot right-of-way with a wide road. We are not proposing that. We're proposing a private street, a la what we did at Villas of Bloomfield Grove, and what every other cluster you've approved in this township has, private streets. And that enables us to provide a lot more green space. But as part of this, we are requesting setbacks relief. So the front setbacks, we're requesting 13.5 to 35 feet setback and from a hypothetical right-of-way. Again, the right-of-way is not 60 feet. But this was actually the exact same front setback variance that we received in the Villas of Bloomfield Grove. And what is important with this, as you can kind of see from that diagram there, at a minimum, we will have 30 feet to the curb, which is very important because that provides that green space, open space. It acts like it's the front setback. You don't know that it's part of the right-of-way. There's no line that's going to be on the ground saying this is right-of-way and this is on the private property. So you'll have a good space in between. Plus, wherever we do have sidewalks, we have sidewalks on one side of the road. At a minimum, you'll have a 23-foot space to park your car, so you won't have overhangs. That's very important. A lot of developers don't think that, and then all of a sudden you have Suburbans that are sticking out over to the sidewalks. That's not going to happen here. So we've thought through all of this, and again, it is the same. If you've been to our Villas of Bloomfield Grove property, it's the same front setback variance. And the purpose of this, as I mentioned, is to take the 35-foot setback that's in your ordinance now, move it to a 55-foot setback. Which is obviously one of the most important things we could do here. And again, I did want to mention, as I mentioned before, the 30-foot to the curb just provides that green space. We're really only talking about hypothetical right-of-way lines at this point, but if you've gone to the Villas of Bloomfield Grove, you'll notice that there's nothing objectionable whatsoever. That's the front yard setback, and we can get into detail on that if you'd like. The side yard setbacks, and again, we did have side yard setback variances for the Villas of Bloomfield Grove. The cluster ordinance actually does not provide any guidance or requirements for detached clusters or for detached homes. The separation is actually from groupings of buildings to buildings. So working with planning, basically we're being held to what would be an R1 16-foot side setback. Again, that's not a cluster type of development. That's more for a traditional colonial, which this is not part of. So what we're proposing is essentially a separation of 14 feet. So there are no property lines, right? You don't have a lot that you own the house. So really we're talking about building separation, which is 14 feet. And again, if these were attached units, say there were fourplexes, like what we showed on the parallel plan, your setback's 0. So by detaching it, which is more desirable to the buyers, more desirable to the surrounding neighbors, so you're not getting this mass. The 14-foot also meets all fire requirements. It meets all drainage requirements, meets all building codes. We've actually done less. We've done 11 feet in some areas, and there's no real issues with that whatsoever from a building perspective. Most of the communities that I'll show you some pictures of it, most of these types of communities are actually less than 10 feet, which is too close in my opinion. But that's what you see out there all along Telegraph. If you walk them, you'll see they're less than 10 feet. And again, this request does not increase the density over that parallel plan, which is what I showed you earlier. From a corner side setback variance, The requirement is 30 feet. We're proposing 15 feet, but again, because of the private street being narrower, you're going to get 30 feet from the building to the curb line, so it functionally is the same as a 30-foot setback. And again, that is something that we did get approved in the Villas of Bloomfield Grove. So you will have a full 30 feet of green space. There will be no line that you see there for the right-of-way. So the next slide is the increase in the size of a one-family residential cluster parcel. And when you look into the ordinance for the cluster, one-family cluster, there is a maximum of 10 acres. We don't know why. It seems to be arbitrary, and I don't like using that word, but there's really no rhyme or reason why it would be, 9.8 acres is fine, but 10.2 is not. The reason why we're asking for this is because we are assembling these 3 parcels here, and if we had to basically assemble it to 10 acres, you'd have a 2.83 acre parcel that would just basically be no man's land. And I know the temple doesn't want that. They certainly don't want that. I don't think the neighborhood wants that. I don't think our future residents want that. It just doesn't make any sense. And that's really a function of the unique configuration of the land. So we're trying to avoid having a remnant parcel that just has no use, future use. And we did on that parallel plan that I showed, we could gerrymander the lines and put a property line down the middle with shared storm, have 2 separate cluster developments that are 10 acre or less, and meet the requirement. We're not proposing to do that. It makes sense to come here and ask for a variance in that respect to try to meet these intents. So this is, I think, what you were talking about before, Chair Henry. There is in the ordinance, a mathematical equation, basically. The first 360 feet is 4.5 units per acre. Everything beyond that would be 1.7 acres. When you add that up, and this is how we actually came about the project, when you add that all up, it comes out to, and I'm showing 39 units here, 26 on the eastern portion and 13 on the western portion, which is 1 more than we're proposing, but basically exactly what we're proposing. So from a density perspective, that parcel, without variances, could have 39 units. In order to do that, you'd have to put all your density in the front. Now, as I mentioned before, none of the other cluster developments that have been approved do that. They all have a mix of density for the entire stretch or width of the property. And from what we see, none of them had to get a variance. But we believe meeting that intent would mean something like what I'm showing there. And I don't show that to scare people off. We actually build that. That's actually one of our townhomes. You'd have to do townhomes on the front and then single family in the back. That's without a variance. So, you'd have townhomes on the frontage there along Telegraph, and then you'd have 2-story Bigfoot homes in the back. And they'd be set basically 35 feet to the property line, pools, playgrounds, you name it, no trees. That's essentially what the ordinance is driving you to. We don't think that that's appropriate. We don't think that makes any sense. And we're proposing a rational approach to that part of the zoning ordinance. So, and we don't think that we think that our project would not negatively affect home values, but that probably would, to be honest.
Tim, let me ask you something. So
Sure.
I assume the stormwater basin is being located where it is due to basically that's where the natural flow goes.
Correct.
So doesn't that impact your ability to then use that frontage area for the increased density?
That's a great point. It certainly does. Yes, if we put townhomes, we could fit them in there, but to your point, with our plan, most of those have to be shifted around. We can't move that storm pond. That storm pond has to be there at that location to functionally work. So, yes, we really look at this as a holistic site, but that storm pond, to your point, really affects our ability to put the units in the front.
Let me ask you
a great
one
point.
other question. When I look at this plan, the back row, there's a little stub that comes out.
Oh, can you go back to this?
You have the circle, right, that goes around there. There's a little stub that comes out. That would be north, in the north corner. That little stub,
Yes.
was that required by the fire department?
No, that's access to those 3 buildings.
Okay, so it really was done to create some additional buildings in there.
We had that kind of in a pie-shaped configuration. This is just a lot more organized approach. We've done this in other areas. We did obviously have to have that back-out area to do that. I would say in a lot of our cluster developments, we have things like this that are basically part of the design. But yes, it's for access for those 3.
So, I mean, I'm just thinking, and kind of off where you are, maybe I'll just wait till you're done with your full presentation.
And I just, in the planning commission minutes, you mentioned that you plan to add fire suppression.
Correct.
So could you expand on that a little bit, because those units are close together and that would be important.
Sure. So, well, the requirement for fire rating is if you're 10 feet or closer. We're going to be 14 feet at the closest, so we don't need to fire suppress for that, if you will, or have a fire rating. The reason we have fire suppression is because it's more than 30 units. And once you hit the magic number of 30, and we only have 1 entrance, there's really no way to get a second entrance to telegraph, and certainly we wouldn't propose it to the neighborhood. So we have a single access, and to go over 30 units, you basically have to have fire suppression, which we've agreed to do. We don't typically do that. We don't want to do that. We think it's probably a hindrance in many respects. I don't think people really want that in their homes, but we're willing to do that, and it's an additional cost. We're willing to do that for fire, yes. And yes, sprinklers, fire sprinklers. Moving on then to, are we on the natural feature setback? This one's an interesting one. I do need to explain it. And essentially, the requirement is a 25-foot natural feature setback area to a natural feature setback, or natural feature. And in this case, it's the pond. So the pond is, as I mentioned, not only pond, but it's also our wetland mitigation. So it really functions as a wetland, if you will. So outside of that, the boundaries of the pond, there's also a 25-foot natural feature setback requirement. That basically needs to be, it can't be a mowed area or something like that. We've proposed like grasslands, that sort of thing, really more of a natural type of look where you don't maintain it. Because of the fact that that storm pond is so large, and because we're taking on the additional water, what we're requesting here is to relax that by 10 feet where you have those units there on the right, and by 15 feet for the southwest where it says 10. And by the way, I didn't mention that's actually a wetland that's staying. We didn't wipe out that wetland there. We are keeping it in place, but we're asking for a natural feature setback reduction from it. So in that case, we would have a 10-foot natural feature planter area. And then adjacent to the storm pond, we're asking for 15 instead of 25 foot. And essentially what that functions as, we're not proposing to have any buildings encroach in there. We're not proposing to have any structures. We're not proposing to have any decks. In Villas of Bloomfield Grove, we actually had units going into that natural feature setback. Here, we're not proposing that. What we think is important is to have a clear area beyond the decks, so the residents can enjoy a little bit of grass area, but also, probably more importantly, for the lawn maintenance crews to be able to get around. So that's why we're proposing to have a little bit of relief from that in those areas only. So that's the explanation for that. Any questions on that?
I assume that you would have in your master deed, notification of those areas and the fact that the homeowners could not encroach into
So
those
that's
natural feature areas anymore.
100% great. That's a really good point. We are proposing to put signage up, so there will be signs saying natural area. Of course, it'll be in the master deed. And since that's not anybody's property, that's the HOA's property, they can't do anything anyway. I know how it goes.
My backyard keeps growing, right? As I move out a little bit more.
In this case, they're pretty vigilant about it,
Yeah.
I would say that.
Okay.
But yes, we will definitely have the master deed. And again, I mentioned that the signage, this would just be pushing it back a little bit to have a little bit of grass area. It'll still then be natural grassland area that I talked about. And then the pond itself is going to be natural planting. So we'll put plugs in there. It'll look like a wetland. So you're going to have a lot of natural areas there. We're just asking for a little relief so we can get around some of those decks. And again, the unique circumstances that the pond is oversized. If we didn't have to oversize that, we wouldn't be asking for this. The next one, and I know there's been a lot of conversations about this, I can get into all the numbers, and I'm certainly happy to do that, but generally speaking, we are proposing more trees than we're taking out. Obviously, they're bigger trees that are there. They've been there for decades. They're not the best trees. There are some nice trees. I'm not saying there aren't. There's some landmark trees. But generally speaking, there's a lot of trees like cottonwoods, box elder, mulberry. These are trees that really are nuisance trees. And we're just asking to have relief from those specific trees. So the overall amount of trees that are required for the site is 3,761 inches, caliper inches. That's a lot, really, for a 12-acre parcel. We're prepared to essentially replace all of those inches, and that's going to be a lot more trees. It's going to be, like I mentioned, the 14-foot buffer trees, that sort of thing. So we'll put them in areas that are a better location to buffer from the neighbors. But we're asking for a variance from 574.5 caliper inches, which represents those nuisance trees. So it represents the cottonwoods, or the box elders, or you can see the non-native. That's what we're asking for in this. We're not asking to get away. If you looked at our site plan, you saw the landscape plan, there's a lot of trees. We're not trying to get out of doing trees. I guarantee you that. And in fact, we're going to be locating more than that's even shown on the plan. We do that. We did this at Villas of Bloomfield Grove. We worked very well with Michael Duell Associates, where we would field locate them because it makes sense to do that rather than do it on a plan on the front end. Some of those additional trees we'll put in where it makes sense, and we'll upsize where it makes sense. And then at the end of the project, we have a running list of the overall caliper inches. It worked very well in Bloomfield Grove, and we worked very well with Duell Associates on that.
So that number of replacement trees, does that include the trees in the green belt and some trees on the Temple property?
That's the next slide.
Okay.
Yeah. But
I'm always one slide ahead of you, I'm sorry.
Well, you are. It's actually 2 slides ahead. But yes, so those trees are basically everything you see on the plan, which are the buffer and the Temple trees, just being able to fit them on there essentially. But again, this variance is just for those kind of nuisance trees. The next slide, I think, really speaks to the reason why we're asking for this and why I think the wetland permit was really approved. So you can see, it's hard for me to read this even, but 1947, I think that is, nothing happened on the site. Nothing was going on. And then a few years later, on the right, I was 1937. Geez, I feel like I'm at a vision test. On the top right is 1949, where they started basically building the homestead on the property and a little bit of farming on the area. It wasn't really until the 50s and 60s when Telegraph was widened and then the adjacent community came in, adjacent neighborhood, and really created a lot of those environmental challenges. There's no detention in that neighborhood, and essentially this has acted as a detention area for that. So that's kind of affected the property. It affected the types of trees that are there, as many trees as there are, the wetlands. So yeah, what I'm trying to convey on this is it was never an old-growth forest. It was never a wetland. That has actually evolved over time after decades of neglect, which really is kind of it speaks to why we were able to get a unanimous approval for the wetlands. And again, it affects, I think, the trees that are on the property. This next slide is what you were talking about, Chair Henry, is the replacement trees. So another variance in conjunction with the first variance is essentially having the replacement trees counted in the green belt. So right now, the trees that we're proposing as a buffer to the neighborhood, which I would think everybody would agree is one of the best components of this development, can't count toward our tree replacements, which doesn't make any sense to us. So what we're asking for is allow us to put those trees in so we can count them toward the replacement. That would be variance to use that area for replacement trees, as well as the Temple property, which is to the south. So essentially, putting in all those trees in the right locations would go toward the replacement trees is what our request is.
I have another question.
Yeah, of course.
So obviously during development, you're going to have mass grading. You have
Correct.
to do that.
Yeah.
Would it be possible to, in your first phase of development, to install all those perimeter trees so that they were in place while construction's going on to provide some kind of buffer.
Yes, I mean, we're only gonna have a one phase of development per se for land development, but yes, we will build houses
But,
as we
you know,
go.
it would help neighbors behind. They would have that immediate block. It would reduce some of the noise and it would catch some of the dust. It was just an idea that I had and wondered if it was possible for you to consider doing that.
Yeah, the only caveat I'd have to that, yes, I think we can certainly accommodate that, and that's actually a very good suggestion. Obviously, we've got to put the storm drain in.
Right.
That'll be first,
Right.
and make sure that all works properly, but I don't see why we'd have any issues with that.
And those trees will be 14 feet?
Yes.
That's the time you
Yeah,
put it.
we agreed to that at the planning commission.
I think that would be a big help.
Yeah, I agree.
And we talked about this a little bit, the perimeter, the elevation of it, I had some questions about, the elevation in general, because when I looked at the site, there's a lot of uneven topography.
Sure, of course.
And you're going to have to regrade it. Is the elevation on the perimeter changing at all?
No, and again, you're a couple slides ahead of me.
Sorry.
And I'm always
I guess I'm
behind, so.
I'm going too slow, I think is what the,
Okay, sorry.
everybody says.
I'll
yes.
I'll just stop asking questions.
We'll show that, but no, we cannot change the grade on the property line. So everything has to basically start from there, and then we'll work our ways away from there. So I guess move on, please. The last one is the permission request. I don't know if I need to get into a lot of detail on this, but it's really to allow us to beautify the neighborhood itself. This was very similar to what we proposed for Villas of Bloomfield Grove. This is more modern, but kind of the same elements. Same landscape architect, and he likes to copy himself from time to time. I'm sure he'll love hearing that.
My only question on that was the 8-foot wall. Why do we have to get to 8 feet on the one wall? Why can't it be 6?
I wish Tad Carew was here to answer that.
You're supposed to
I
say,
don't know if
Carol,
he
it could be
necessarily-
6.
There can't be
I'm not
that
sure.
much
That's what
difference.
you're supposed to say.
Yeah.
I don't know if it necessarily does. It was to give us a vertical element. Now, remember, the berms are 8 foot.
Yeah.
So I think the thought process was really kind of keep that 8 foot, because where that 8 foot is if you look at the top left picture, it's screened by, there's like 4 trees on the bottom right of that picture. It's screened by those trees, so you can't really see it. But that is the location of where it's supposed to be. There's no berm right there, so it kind of functions as that 8-foot berm. If so, it'd be the same height. That's what he was going for. We're not
We
going
don't
to
like
die
it,
on
you
that
could
hill.
consider, yeah.
What's that? Yeah, that's not something we'll die on the hill, but I think it's appropriate because of the 8-foot berm is where
Yeah, okay.
Tab is going. But other than that, I don't know if you want to get into details on that, but that's the request, is to be able to beautify the area. I don't want to read every single one of these, but I think it is really important we've thought through our process. This is in the narrative that I provided, so hopefully most of you read all that. I've kind of spoken to a lot of these things, but we just feel that there are a lot of the justification why we're here today is because we're trying to work with the neighborhood. We're trying, and I know it seems like it's never good enough, to be honest. But we're really trying to make this a project that fits in as much as it can and provides that buffer. And it requires variances to do that. We're also next to a major thoroughfare that's not conducive for, necessarily for a family with kids running around. It makes sense for what we're proposing. And we think we're actually lower density than really what it probably should be. But most of these that we're providing for are to make the project a better project for the township and for the residents and for our residents. If you can go to the next slide. I do want to talk about some of these. I've talked about the Telegraph Road, the low quality trees, low quality wetland. It was not regulated by Eagle. But we were able to work with staff to come up with a very creative solution. We do have Fran Thompson from BAR as well to speak to some of the wetland comments, if there are any, if that's something that's important. But I don't want to lose fact of the desire of the community for these homes. That is a very important fact. We have been looking for a site like this where we don't have to be 2 million plus, and this is an opportunity for us to do that. We don't know of another opportunity unless a school sells again, right? I mean, that's how we got Bloomfield Grove. But there really isn't, there's just not much. You're a built-out community. And then I know the temple will speak to it, but it is very important that there is a use there that's very safe and secure, and this is a project that is able to do that for them. So I burned through all of that, but I think you've read through all of it. I do briefly want to touch on some of the existing projects, because I think it's very important to show that. Your ordinances allow that density increase along the major thoroughfares. That's Square Lake, which we did the Heathers many, 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 many years ago. And that's essentially probably the only project on Square Lake that has it. And then everything else is really Telegraph. It just makes sense that Telegraph is the area where a proposal like we're giving you tonight should go. It specifically allows that. And most of those projects that you see, most of those dots right there, most of those are 6 to 8 units per acre. We did the math. They're more density than what we're proposing. And they have less building separation, so I'll show you that in a sec. But all of these developments just could not be built under the ordinances you have today without having some kind of special dispensation. Next slide. So this is just an example of some of those. Bloomfield Chase I alluded to, right down the street here. Hickory Ridge Village, Woodsville and Pine, there's actually many of them. You saw all of the dots there, but this is really indicative of what it is. You can Bloomfield Chase, you can see most of those homes are not within the first 360. In fact, it's more of a berm. Most of the development and the property lines to the left, most of that is in the 1.7 acre area, and you can really make the argument for most of these. If you go to the next slide, Corey, that's not what we're going to have. We're going to have more. This is probably, most of these are, I think, 10 to 11 feet separation, if that. Some of them are less. That is the predominant building typology along Telegraph Road. Go to the next one. So I think this is kind of what you're getting to a little bit. Chair Henry, this is a site cross-section. I've shown this a couple of times, so some people are familiar with it. The one on the top is essentially the second house into the neighborhood. That's the backyard. So our homes would be, that's basically a view facing east. Our home would be on the right, and then that's actually the dimensions of the existing home to our north. And you can see there's a power line that kind of runs down the property line pretty much. They're much higher. And what we're proposing to do is put in, those are not 14-foot trees, by the way. That was before we had the 14-foot tree requirement, so they'll be bigger. But the reason I want to show you this slide is because without variances, what will be built there, and I assume it will be built unless somebody comes to you with apartments, is a 2-story home 35 feet off. You can kind of see that shade, that dotted line there. We're proposing a single story 55 foot away, and that's to us that's a very important fact. I did want to point out the entire gamut of this. On the bottom one, it's actually the southwest corner of the site, where actually it's about even, but there's a berm in the middle. So that's like the one area where we're actually not lower than them, but there's a berm that comes in there. I wanted to point this out. We're going to have storm manholes in there. None of our water is going to go on the other property, and there's a berm there existing. But I wanted to point out kind of the gamut of what the site looks like. But again, you can see what we could build there, which we're not proposing. And the next slide, just a couple of these slides. And again, Brad Brickell from NOAC can speak to this much more eloquently, but everything's draining to the southeast. Everything from this whole area. And you can really see from those arrows, but then the heat map shows elevations there. So you can see why it's kind of been a neglected property, and that's just had that kind of neglect over the decades. The next slide. This shows the drainage coming in. That red line is really where it's picking up and conveying all the water into the storm pond. You can see that's that southwest corner I mentioned. Water kind of goes both ways there. But predominantly, we're taking on the neighborhood. Water does not go uphill. It just doesn't. So,
And your drainage plan has been approved by the township engineer?
Yes, preliminary, yes. We still have to go through final engineering, but yes, we couldn't get this far without having staff approval.
And then there was some mention, I don't know, Was there an offer or some discussion of an engineering study to be
Yep.
provided to Birmingham Farms? Is that going forward?
We started it. We
Okay.
started it. It should be finalized.
So you'll have a chance to speak and you can ask questions.
Sure.
I really appreciate how respectful everyone's been to this point. I know it's hard because I know you disagree with what's being said, but you'll have your chance. Go ahead.
Yes, we commissioned Brad Rickel from Nowak and Frost to do a study, an engineering study. They've been out there, they've done, they've looked at measurements, they've looked at the condition. You know, the initial feedback is that obviously there's no detention in that system. It's kind of like tin whistles and you know, just kind of drainage in the front yards. Really hasn't been maintained to the fact where it's functioning properly. So that's why a lot of the flooding has occurred. It's not because of this property, and it won't because of this property. But that study should be done in the next couple of weeks, certainly before we go to the board, and we can share that with the township for sure. And he can speak to that if there's any questions. He'd be happy to.
Do we have any other questions?
I have
Oh,
Yes,
questions.
okay, go ahead.
Yeah,
Chris, you wanna
are you
start?
done with your presentation?
I have a 3-minute fly through that nobody wants to see, so I'm pretty much done.
Okay, because I don't want to take away from your time.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. So, couple questions. One, what is the density of Bloomfield Grove? You guys built Bloomfield Grove, which is a beautiful neighborhood. It really is, and you guys did an amazing job.
It's around 1.4.
1.4.
Yeah.
So, and what is this proposed at?
This is just under 3 units per acre.
Okay, 38 units and 12.83 acres. I get over 3. Am I wrong in my math?
I think the Bloomfield Grove is 2.26.
No, yeah.
units per acre.
So Bloomfield Grove, which you guys built, correct, has
Yes.
40 units and 27 acres.
Correct.
Which comes out to 1.48
Yeah.
units per
Roughly,
acre.
yeah.
The Enclave, your proposal, has over 3, so more than double.
I think it's 2.9.
Okay, no, that
12.83 acres.
divided by 38, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, so almost double, so,
It's
and
also
then,
not on a major thoroughfare. Losser's obviously different. It's just a different, it's a different project. It's just a different product. I mean, that's how we got to $2 million per unit, just the density and the overall kind of gravitas. Here, it makes sense. We don't think 3 units per acre is too much off a major thoroughfare. It's hard to compare those because they are totally different projects. We're probably going to be about half the cost too, so.
what did the Bloomfield Grove start at? Again, finances are not necessarily the thing we always look at,
Understood.
obviously, but
sure.
what did you guys first price point those at? Before inflation?
$799,
$799, and at the end of the
It was
project.
before COVID,
Before
yeah.
COVID, they got to $2 million.
correct.
So we could start this project, depending on price point, at $1 million, and they could go to $2 million, depending on features and what clients want, right? Because you guys are in the product.
I assume people will put in a couple $100,000 for sure. No, these are smaller plans. I don't see it going up. Really, the cost increase, if you will, and you can believe me or not, COVID really caused our world chaos. Everything went 50% higher. So we had to be able to cover those costs. That's why those prices went up. I don't see that happening again unless we have another, war or pandemic. I think we've really stabilized construction costs the last 2 or 3 years. So once we got to that kind of level of Bloomfield Grove, we didn't keep jumping. It was really a COVID bump, for sure.
What was the side yard setbacks you guys had in Bloomfield Grove?
The minimum on the variance was 25 feet
So 25.
separation.
Again, and again, I believe it was a beautiful community. You guys did a great
Thank
job.
you.
It really was. And
agree.
again, the landscaping is amazing. But again, 25 feet is significantly different than 14 feet. So
It is, and again, it's a
I'm
different
struggling with that. I'm being honest, Tim. And then you guys did another development so to your credit, and I've told this to people that I've heard from the other side, is the cluster housing in the front. I've seen your development in Northville Township. I know you guys try to do that with those attached homes. And they did not sell as well as the single family, which is why you guys transitioned to it. And you're listening to the market and trying to build it. Completely understand, and I got to see you guys do that and try.
Yes.
You guys put up a good product there, and you guys are trying to do that. I understand that. We're taking the cluster housing ordinance and being very creative of the density over the entire unit. And that's where I'm having a struggle. I personally am. So I understand that I think this is a better product by not having homes connected together like your parallel plan. But your parallel plan, I don't believe even meets the cluster housing ordinance. So I don't know what ordinance we're trying to meet, because it still doesn't have that density for the 360 feet.
So originally, just to speak to that, if I can, so that wasn't really anything that we had discussed with staff, and I'm not trying to throw staff under the bus, but when we went through that initial submittal with that parallel plan, we had calculated the overall density based on the mathematical equation. And then it wasn't until I think we got a little bit further down that, and we started applying for the variances, that was going to be a variance as well. As I mentioned, other projects didn't get a variance for that. They just got it as part of their approval. So that parallel plan was done before that, and that's why I mentioned their dimensional variances. It meets all the dimensional ordinances. Correct, there is, if you do the letter of the law, but you can't really cut through a building anyway for density. So it doesn't seem to make sense to apply that to that parallel plan, just like it doesn't with our site plan.
We can agree to disagree on that one. How about that? The other one is, there are other provisions in our ordinance that you guys could have decided to go with, whether it was a single-family development platting, which is approximately 16,000 square feet per acre, which would put your density at around 27, or the open preservation, which is the same thing at 27. Why did you guys choose to go with this plan?
Because that doesn't seem like an appropriate development on a major freeway or major roadway. Telegraph's pretty much a freeway. That doesn't make sense to us at all. We feel like we have to buffer from it, create a berm, and create a product that the township really needs. So this is an opportunity to do that. That's our proposal. I don't think anybody would come in to do single family like that off there. You'll probably see something a lot more intense. We feel this is a much better. We wouldn't be here if we didn't think this was a much better use of the property than what you're talking about.
And to be very blunt and honest, you guys are putting this across the street from your headquarters. I don't think you're going to put an eyesore across the street. It is your name, your reputation. You've been in business for 80 years.
Correct.
So you're not going to ruin your reputation across the street. And I wholeheartedly believe that, and anybody who doesn't, shame on them, right? Like, let's be honest.
We wouldn't ruin our reputation for anything in any other community.
Any
But
project.
yes, this is special to us, of course.
But I'm having a tough time with the density, Tim. That's where I'm struggling. A lot of the other stuff,
So
I
you
get
would
why.
prefer to see townhomes on the front and single family in the back?
That is not what I'm proposing. I'm proposing.
But that is what would be allowed without.
So
variance.
it's 38 units or nothing, is what you're telling me.
I
Our
guess-
proposal is 38 homes,
Yeah, I guess
yes.
that's where I'm going to come in on what Chris is saying, okay?
Perfect.
Tell me
Harold.
what your price point is going to be starting on these units.
What would you pay for one?
What would I pay for one? I wouldn't live off a telegraph like that,
That's a fair
okay?
point.
That's my personal, but people do. I understand, you know what I do for a living.
Mm-hmm.
You know that I understand what's going on with these developments throughout the state of Michigan, okay? I understand it. But if you assume that there are some members of this board that are concerned about the density, you know, it would have been nice to have some kind of a market study or feasibility, something, which I know
I think
you have internally.
80 years of experience. with
Yeah,
this.
but, okay, so there's a price point for those homes.
Yes.
And why I brought up about the little stub sticking out there is that was done for you to be able to add a few more homes, okay? If you took that stub out and just ran those homes around that curve, you'd drop off a couple homes. Are you trying to tell me that that would make this project not feasible?
I guess what I'm trying to say is, we think we have a development that, as a practitioner, meets the market need, and we don't think we'll have any issues selling any of those units. Now, if you're asking me, are we horse trading here, and you're saying, why don't you just lose a couple units and everything's fine?
Why don't you just lose a couple units? No, let's be real, because, where you're asking for a big variance is in that rear strip with all those units, because that density is not supposed to be back there, okay? Seems to me if you just continued the houses around the curve and lost a couple units, that would spread the things out a little bit more in terms of the distances between buildings, and still I understand the project. You know I do.
Yeah.
I understand that the market is looking for this kind of project, and I understand that these projects are usually put in areas like this where somebody's not gonna go and build a single-family residential home. Okay, I get all that. But my question is, are you telling me that this project would die if you knocked a couple units off?
So my only response to that, no, but my response to that would be, is it noticeable whatsoever to anybody, or is it just a pound of flesh? Because at the end of the day, 38 versus 36, no one that's driving down Telegraph will ever know the difference. Nobody driving through it will ever know the difference. Nobody that's surrounding it will ever know the difference. So if it's just a matter of, you came in with 38, we'll give you 36.
Pound of flesh, okay? But we're talking about the homes that back up to residences. So if you lose a couple of them, they're looking at less homes when they look out in their backyard, okay?
So I don't think we're going to resolve this
Yeah.
issue now.
No, but I'm
My
just-
suggestion is, are there any other questions? Because I do think we
Yeah.
need to get to the public hearing.
Yeah, but keep
Does anybody
that
else
in
have any
mind.
questions?
There's a density issue.
Yeah,
we're
so
not
Carol's
against
sort of given her perspective on it. Any other questions?
I do have actually one, if you don't
Okay.
mind. So we are talking about, one of the variances you guys are asking for is for the tree calculation to be included in the Greenbelt buffer
Yes.
and the Temple property. Can you
Correct.
tell me what number, do you happen to know what number of the tree caliber are in those sections versus the rest?
Those are all 14 footers. I don't know how that corresponds necessarily. I'd say probably a pretty big portion of it, because those are big trees.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to tell on the top of my head, but
I didn't know if you had it as part of your plan, that's why I was
No,
asking.
no.
So, because you mentioned it and you're asking for that variance on it, how much, so is it, if we didn't give you that variance,
It
then
is
you
a
meet
very-
it by 30%, you mean, like, how much does that include? So,
it is a very important one, yes.
okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
I have just one.
Okay, go
Real
ahead.
quick. How long do you anticipate the construction, the duration of the construction?
That's great. That's a great point. So typically, land development's about 4 to 5 months. Once we have the land development done, we can start building the homes. We'll build a model. We typically build homes as they're sold. We think we'll be successful here, probably 2, maybe 2.5, 3 units per month. So you're probably looking at probably a 2-year sales period as we build everything out. So from start to finish, I'm guessing, really from land development, from project closeout, it could be 4 years. They take a while to build, these homes, ranches.
Any other questions? All right, so I now have a couple questions. Thank you for your respectful attention. The first category of speakers, so Tim, you can step down, thank you, that was helpful. Is there anyone here who is representing the Birmingham Farms HOA? Please raise your hand. So we have 2 different people. So is that because, is one of you Chris Gagnon? Okay, so Chris is not here. So why, so it really should just, I'm just looking for one person representing that group. So you decide between the 2. All right, all right. Please, just hold on, I'm asking questions. Is there anyone else that's representing a group?
Yes, ladies represent.
All right, so, so I just need a show of hands. Now, people are standing up, please sit down. Please sit back down. I need everybody to sit down now. Sit down, please.
The chair has spoken. Please.
All right, you're eroding your good behavior here. All right, you need to work it out. I want one representative from the Birmingham Farms. Show of hands, who else is representing a group? All right, so first row, who in the audience is represented by this gentleman? What is your name?
Larry Hoffman.
Larry Hoffman. How many people? Okay. All right, next person that raised their hand.
United Homeowner Association of Bloomfield Township.
United. So who is that in the back?
What do you mean?
Residents, you're asking for Larry Hoffman, right?
Yep.
Supporting Larry Hoffman. Put your hands up.
I don't think they're understanding here.
Yeah. So you know what I'm going to have to do? I'm going to have one person speak for 5 minutes. That's a representative of the Birmingham Farms Association. Please step forward, and we'll put the timer on 5 minutes. I know that, so you're going to get 3 minutes.
I'm the current president of the Birmingham Farms Homeowners Association.
All right.
Fiscal year ends today, that's when the term ends, is tonight at midnight.
I understand that, because we have an email from Chris Gagnon, who's going to be the president of Birmingham Farms
Quiet.
tomorrow. I'm sorry, just one representative of the group. This was somewhat of a debated idea, and you've kind of helped me make the decision that we're just going to go with 3 minutes for everyone. So let's start the clock, and please proceed.
Thank you. My name is Joe Young, current president of the Birmingham Farms HOA.
He'll get 5. Give him 5.
I live at 7190 Cathedral Drive. We have, as we became aware of this development last year and we started to learn more about what was being proposed, Robertson invited us into their offices to hear their plan. It wasn't always a super productive meeting. We continued the conversation. We took the resident concerns to them, every single one that we could collect from the group, and I feel that Robertson has responded appropriately to every single concern that we brought forward, even amending their plans in numerous ways. In terms of partnership, from a developer to our community, Robertson has proven to be that kind of partnership that you want, that's taking in the neighboring communities' concerns into their implementation in their plan. It has not been an easy process so far, but in terms of changing the landscaping, looking at some of the construction plans that they have where they want to start building the units, the drainage issues, which our neighborhood would never be able to afford to address in that part of the neighborhood, they will have addressed in their plan. And I do sympathize and empathize with all the neighbors in the neighborhood that are adjacent to that property and the construction noise, having backed up to the Brookside Village community myself during that construction. But as far as the developer you would want to come in and handle this property, I can't think of a better partner than Robertson to do that. And they have also offered resources to the neighborhood to address drainage issues in other parts of the neighborhood that don't touch that property. And, you know, throughout all of this, we've learned a lot. By the time we discovered that this was in process, we started to decide what was it that we would need out of them versus stopping the development from happening in the first place. Again, Robertson, very open, very communicative, very willing to sit and understand. I've even seen them driving through the neighborhood to look at the things that we brought to them. Very thoughtful, very curious. I can't say enough good things about just the conversations that we've had. And to the point, I don't remember who made it up here, it is across the street from their office. So we know, anybody knows where to go if there's an issue, but I don't imagine that they would be creating any problems for the surrounding community, knowing that they're so close by. And I just want to say that, again, having done this, I moved into the neighborhood after Brookside started. Brookside didn't offer the neighborhood anything in terms of concessions, modifications, anything like that, to my knowledge. This has been a very, very contrasting experience to that. That's all I want to say. I support the development. I've appreciated Robertson's involvement so far, and hopefully you all can see that as well, too. Thank you.
What was your name again and your address?
Sorry, Joe Young, 7190 Cathedral.
Thank you. All right, and so, just so the public knows, we got an email from Chris Gagnon, who's going to be the president of the Birmingham Farms Association effective tomorrow. He has a very detailed email listing his opposition, and he says, the comments below are meant to reflect my personal views as well as those of many neighbors who are strongly opposed. So I'm taking this email as the other factual information from the board. So now we're going to start with 3 minutes a person. We're going to go this side first row, we're going to move back, and then this side next. So first row, gentlemen, please, you've got 3 minutes. Name and address.
Thank you. Larry Hoffman, 6872 Cedarbrook. I'd like to submit these also just as information for the record. This is validation. We have
We'd be happy to have them.
400 verified signatures and previous letters from to the township on.
Please
this
sit
issue.
down. Sit down, or we're going to stop. I asked you to sit down before, and it hasn't changed. Please sit down. It doesn't help if you're standing. We're going to go row by row. Everyone's going to get their 3 minutes.
I'm here tonight with.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
Restart the timer.
I'm here tonight with the other residents of Birmingham Farms who stand firmly opposed to this proposed enclave development. We who actually live here have spent many months building a coalition, as you've heard and you saw online, sharing our concerns, listening to residents, going door to door, talking face to face with them, speaking with other trustees, and digging, as residents, not experts, digging into the township's general and zoning ordinances to make our case. And when you set the stage a little bit, you will hear clear, detailed, and overwhelming case against the project from the vast majority of those from our subdivision, the subdivision I live in as well. You also hear that from other Bloomfield Township residents and neighbors who also recognize the risks and concerns with the development this development poses. This does not just impact Birmingham Farms, it impacts the township as a whole. Make no mistake, while the developer and the members of Temple Bethel, which I previously was a member, stand to gain from this proposal, which is their right, it is the residents of this community that back up to this development that are both here tonight and not able to be here tonight that will bear the impacts. Just as a little bit of background, without going into it, the HOA has very limited governance powers and decision rights based on its bylaws. There's no deed restrictions, none of that, and has recently changed, as you heard from others and from Chris. In my opinion, it was inappropriate for the HOA to stand in favor or in opposition to this development, knowing that residents they represent felt strongly on both sides. Listen instead to the residents that are here today, especially the families living right next to the proposed development, who would bear the largest brunt of the construction, the noise, the water, and would have a direct impact on their quality of life. Had the applicant proposed a plan that came anywhere close to complying to the township code, we would not be here today. The variances are extreme, the proposal is extreme, and this evening we ask the board to listen to the residents, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Very much. Appreciate it. Second row. Anyone would like to speak?
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Alice Wachel, 1782 Maplewood. I'm a member of the Square Lake Association, and I serve as president of the United Homeowners Associations of Bloomfield Township, representing 80 neighborhood and condominium associations throughout the township, and by inference, thousands of residents. Our associations provide thoughtful ordinance-based input, but too often, HOA perspectives are overlooked while large developers receive sweeping approvals. Tonight, we ask you to take the HOA considerations seriously. Importantly, the standards for granting variances are not met here. The law requires a showing of practical difficulty. On a clean, undeveloped parcel, there can be no such difficulty. This site can be designed in compliance. Every hardship here is self-created by the developer's choice to overbuild the property. Variances must also be the minimum necessary to permit reasonable use. But these requests, doubling density, having the setbacks, cutting buffers, are not minimum relief. They are wholesale exemptions. By law, they should be denied. It's no wonder that the adjacent HOAs object to them. This application for the enclave goes far beyond minor relief. The metrics presented by Robertson were a little bit cherry-picked as they presented metrics that match other types of properties. But despite the fact that they don't like our zoning, it exists for a reason. Density. The proposal doubles the permitted density outside the corridor, 3.43 units per acre versus the 1.7 allowed. Project size. The development covers 12.83 acres, exceeding the 10-acre cluster housing maximum. Setbacks. Required buffers are being slashed. Front yards cut from 40 to 13.5 feet. Side separation reduced from 35 to 14, and corner sides from 30 feet to 15. These aren't minor adjustments. Natural features. The 25-foot buffer is cut to 10 feet, and tree replacement falls short by 1,551 inches of diameter. It's nice to measure the actual trees, but the law is the diameter. It's a 40% deficit in canopy that can't be replaced. The changes requested here are not merely variances, but represent wholesale changes to the zoning code. Let's face it, this board denied my request for a variance of 4 foot on a setback when I was building my home. And I was told, hey, you're designing from scratch, you should design to meet the property. And you know what? That's what we did. Granting a developer such sweeping relief while holding homeowners to strict standards creates a double standard and erodes confidence in the process. Finally, the hardship is not on the developer, but on the community. 4 years of continuous construction noise, traffic, and disruption to mature neighborhoods. That's not compatible with the intent of our ordinances. On behalf of Bloomfield Township HOAs, I urge you to deny these variances. You know, as I was driving, I'm almost at time, so I'll skip that part. Please uphold the ordinance, restore balance, and ensure that the voices of homeowners that are sitting here tonight and others are given weight in this process. Thank you.
Thank you for your well-organized
I have
anyone else in the second row? I know this is emotional. It doesn't help us if there's applause. We understand that everyone here is probably in support of what is being said. So, and again, we're looking for new facts, so you can agree with what's been said before and add your additional things. Thank you.
My name is Lawrence Epstein. I've been a resident and taxpayer of Bloomfield Township since 1983. I've lived here for over 40 years, raised a family here, and owned the office building at East 4111 Andover Road, where I headquartered my company some 45, 50 years ago. I was married at Temple Bethel. At the corner of 14 Mile and Telegraph back in 1975. I've been a member there for over 50 years, and I'm a former president of the Temple. That said, I am very much in favor of seeing this project move forward. I think it's well considered, it's balanced, and frankly, Bloomfield Township needs this development. I think it's a great senior housing opportunity. It's good for the community. And quite frankly, as a new generation of 40-somethings raising young families moves into my neighborhood along Wing Lake, my wife and I would be very interested in a new single-story home, allowing us to remain nearby the Temple and remain here in Bloomfield Township. Again, I think we need this development. It's good for the Temple because it provides something of a security buffer, and it should be an attractive place for many of our congregants to possibly live without the stresses of a yet more dense development, which would typically be located next door. And at the same time, it improves the tax base for the township, and it offers incremental support to the businesses along Telegraph Road, along Maple Road, and I think that the project is going to have minimal impact on nearby communities or traffic in general because all the ingress and egress is off Telegraph Road. Frankly, communities change, communities evolve, times change. We can't stop change. We can't sit and not do anything with this property. I'm in total support of the project, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you.
Less than 3 minutes.
Third row then, name and address.
My name is Mark Takle. I live at 1550 Georgetown Drive. My background is in engineering. I do a lot of projects with automation, and I work on a lot of engineered solutions. And whenever those don't work out and we don't get the results that we're expecting, we have to go back and determine why our results were inaccurate. When it comes to water and irrigation and those engineering plans, it's rare that we see the township go back and tell us why things went wrong, or go back and identify where those problems were and ask for the builders to fix it. Case in point, Legacy Hills. That was a long drawn-out issue, and they were told that the problems with water and irrigation would not be an issue. And when it did come to fruition and it was an issue, there was no one went back. No one identified where the assumptions went wrong, and no one identified an engineering solution to mitigate the problem. So moving forward, if we don't understand why mistakes happened in the past on previous projects, how can we ensure that the engineering solutions that are being presented today are real solutions and are going to be consistent with expectations? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the third row?
One other thing, I want to, this ties into a lot of Mr. Kalinsky's concerns regarding density. As density is reduced, so do problems with water and dispersing the water. So thank you, Mr. Kalinsky, for making those comments.
Thank you. Anyone else in the third row?
How you doing? My name's Mark Bernstein, 4653 Chelsea Lane, Bloomfield Township. Member of Temple Bethel. I know the sale of the property is very crucial for the temple for security reasons, to bring a company like Robertson to do a great, safe community. If there is room for compromise, I would make some of the people on the board and Robertson, I urge them to compromise, because you don't get your first choice all the time on either side. I mean, otherwise you're living by Schitt's Creek, and we don't want that. Maybe you are already.
Thank you for the popular culture reference.
Thank you.
All right, fourth row. Anyone in the fourth row that'd like to speak?
Good evening. My name is Pete Paul, and I live at 7431 Cathedral Drive, current resident and officer of the Birmingham Farm Homeowners Association. Obviously, you know the neighborhood sits adjacent to the proposed development. I'd like to say tonight we have a very small but also very vocal minority who oppose this development. What I really don't grasp is why they oppose the project, since the reasons have shifted every single meeting that I've attended. First it was the water, and then the engineer came in and said they were going to take control of that and that wouldn't be an issue. The outrage shifted to Save the Wetlands campaign. When they found out it wasn't a true wetland, that angle failed. And now we're outraged about the thickness of trees, the amounts of blades of grass per square inch, setbacks, and other variances. At the end of the day, you know, this group is outraged by the inconvenience of having to live next to construction if the proposal passes. I empathize with this, but this isn't a reason to listen to the screaming voices at the sky that are really here, I believe, for selfish reasons. When surveyed, only 4% of the 367 homes in Birmingham Farms opposed this project. They were all given a survey. This group is upset with the former Birmingham Farm Homeowners Association because they supported the project. That anger spilled over to the annual meeting, where a group of residents came to the meeting to sabotage and overthrow and take over the positions of president, vice president, and secretary. They left me as treasurer because I guess I have insight of what's going on currently, and they wanted some information. I decided to stay on because truly I do have the neighborhood's best interest in mind. I've been there for 22 years. The current HOA president doesn't even live in the neighborhood. He hasn't even moved in. Paid dues right before the meeting to sabotage, to overthrow, and oust the current president. That is also true for the current vice president. That is also true for the current secretary. One of the at-large members of the board now also paid their dues last second just to have voting rights. What I don't understand is how these people say they care so much about the neighborhood, but yet couldn't pony up $50 to take care of the grass and the entrances, left that for the other people to fend for themselves or do it themselves. So I don't buy the neighborhood argument, because these are the affected people, and I do sympathize with that. But I don't think it's a reason to oppose this. So again, I hope this project gets approved, but please don't be influenced by what I view as the self-serving voices of the opposition.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in that fourth row?
Good evening. James Rose, 6677 Timber Ridge. Telegraph and Maple Road. I've been in this area since 1961. Telegraph was a 4-lane road with a median going down the middle, a barricade. Maple was another 2-lane road. It was the worst intersection in the state. They had more accidents, more people getting killed. They had a scoreboard up there they called it Skull Corner. So they had to do something about making this area safer. Maybe it was for future development, but at the time I seem to recall it was making it safer than it was. It's still a dangerous road. I'm averaging once every 16 years a close call. I've avoided 2 accidents. Somebody behind me got hit and he came into my back end. When I was a kid, my mom was driving us and she hit ice and was sliding all over the road.
So is your concern the traffic? Is that what you're worried about? Is that?
Okay, well, that's one of them. Now, if you want to move in there, you're going to be sleeping next to Telegraph Road with high-speed, loud, noisy cars at 3 o'clock in the morning with no mufflers. Fire engines going by your head. Speed sirens. High-speed trucks. All day long you got traffic. So it's a noisy area. I can hear it 5 blocks away. I wouldn't move in there if you paid me. So good luck with this project. I think it's a bad idea.
Okay. Anyone else in that fourth row?
I'm Sylvia Hagan. I live 6934 Cedar Brook Drive.
Good evening.
Good evening. I have lived in Bloomfield Township almost my entire life. I graduated from Bloomfield Hills High School in 1959, and my kids graduated from Andover in the 80s. So I've been around Bloomfield, and I respect and love what the township has been. I do not believe that this development is in keeping with what our township is. It's appropriately named an enclave, which the definition is a place or group that is different in character from those surrounding it. And I do believe that's exactly true. The variances are numerous, and that's a big concern. If it has to have that many things that are different than what our township has written down, and it's part of their master plan, then I think it needs to be rethought. I am particularly backing up to the northern end of this development, and it is extremely dense at that end, as you have seen on the diagrams. The houses are side by side by side. It's like a row house in a city, and it's not what you think in Bloomfield. My main concern of that, too, is that there's huge trees in that area that they're going to be clear-cut and put in 15-foot trees, 14-foot, 12, doesn't matter. They're not hundreds of feet. I take issue with calling a cottonwood a nuisance tree when it's 100 years old and provides a ground protection and a canopy of clearing our air and cooling and noise mitigation. So I think that the trees that are really big along the perimeter should be retained and not just clear cut and put down some evergreens which make a fence. The ordinances, well, the township is going to replace the trees, they say, with these trees, and that's not a replacement. There are several large trees. The original, when I moved in there 45 years ago from another home in Bloomfield Township, the center was developed as a nursery, and it had a greenhouse and a house and fields of lily.
So could you
The-
sort of wrap up your
Okay,
comments?
I will wrap it up. The perimeter
So in
was still
summary, you
there.
want to tell us,
Pardon?
in summary, you want us to remember what? What's the most important thing for us to remember?
I'm sorry?
What's the most important thing for us to remember?
That the trees are not to be taken down in the perimeter. We need a bigger perimeter and less density. That's my main.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Anyone else in that row? Fifth row? Okay, so we're going next row, the sixth row now. The row behind that?
Thank you. Don Elder, 7145 Glen Grove. Wanted to talk about something called practical difficulty first. It's defined as property development. Practical difficulty refers to unique circumstances, physical characteristics of property that strict adherence to local zoning is an excessive burden. So looking at the property, the parcel, property is largely rectangular in shape, largely flat with no steep inclines. There are no hazardous waste to be removed. The area is not prone to fires or earthquake. All the infrastructure is already there: water, sewer, power, gas, phone, fiber optic, and a cell phone a quarter-mile away. Minimal practical difficulty. The applicant decided the one-family residential cluster option. They did not implement the cluster. The cluster requires the development. If it goes beyond 360 feet deep, the parcel must be less than 10 acres. It's not. They added acreage to it. The cluster requires the applicant reduce the density beyond 360 feet deep to 1.7 acres per unit. They did not. These variances are all self-created. I want to look at the enclave variances, and I have a handout for you here. So the side setback, 35 feet. The applicant's requesting 14. It's already been discussed. Virtually every home there, left and right. 76 variances. Front setback, 40 feet. All 38 homes. Corner side yard setback, 3 homes. Natural feature setback, 13 more. 130 unit variances on 38 homes. Want to talk density for just 1 minute. I'll hand this to you when I finish. Want to talk density. It came up a couple times this day. Barron Estates, 22 units, 18 acres, 1.22. Villas at Bloomfield Grove, 1.48. Hickory Ridge, 2.05. The enclaves around 3. Bloomfield Chase was referenced as being close to 3 as well. But that was done before the 2007 master plan. Today, we don't accept that. So the takeaway, the board I want to give tonight is their entire approach site generates one violation after another. First, they didn't even own the property. That alone means there's no undue hardship. Second, they chose single-family cluster option but failed the cluster. To make up for that, they extended the lot depth, they added acreage. Because of all these missteps, the density exceeded ordinance requirements. Every unit up, every unit, 2 side setbacks and a front setback. All because the units are crammed so tightly and nearly every tree must be cut down. I went through every single tree in the tree inventory, 491 trees, 485 being cut down. In short, 1 or 2 self-created problems have snowballed into dozens and dozens of variances. It's not what our ordinance expect to allow. So just wrap up. On behalf of my neighbors, those who have stood here tonight, held up their signs, went through multiple design board meetings, the planning meeting, the wetlands board, and the 400-plus residents that signed off on a petition to reject this proposal, I respectfully ask you reject the proposal as submitted and let the applicant or another applicant come back with a proposal that meets the township requirements, resident requirements, and their requirements. This is not that proposal. This is not that proposal. We can do better. Thank you.
Anyone else in the sixth row?
Hello, Stuart
evening.
Harmon, 7094 Cathedral Drive. I oppose the plan as presented as well. And I do acknowledge that builders have a right to build, but it's provided they comply with the ordinances that are out there to both, protect the character of the township as well as the existing residents' properties. This proposal doesn't do that. And as we've all heard, there's just an infinite number of variances. An example that was just brought up was just the whole clustering thing. That is not, it's to be used in situations where the normal subdivision approach would be otherwise restrictive. And you just heard it's not. So, there's alternatives. It's not, as we heard, it's 38 houses or nothing. There's alternatives. Don't let the builder box you into that. So really, I think from that standpoint, it's a flawed premise that, clustering even is needed here. Separately, regarding density, just about every one of these meetings we've been to, Planning Commission, everything, everyone has mentioned density, even the folks that voted for it. And you all have raised those issues too. That needs to really be taken into account. In the Birmingham Farms subdivision, we're going to be affected by all these people cutting through our neighborhood. Because if you want to get out onto 15 Mile, you'll go down to 14 onto Cathedral and go out at the light. Or if you're on 14 Mile, you'll cut through in Cathedral and go out just north of the subdivision. So we're going to get added traffic in our subdivision. 38 times 2, that's 76 cars. So, it's just more traffic. We don't have sidewalks. We got kids out waiting for bus stops. So I think that's something that should be taken account for as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the sixth row like to speak?
Good evening.
Good evening.
The chair and members of
Your name and
zoning.
address?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Chesik at 6770 White Pine Drive, Bloomfield Township, and subdivision. So I am every day go trip through the Telegraph Road to that. So I have lived for quite enough, more than 30 years in my current home address. And regarding these things, I respectively urge denial of request variances, or at the minimum substantial reduction of their scope. I will not mention all of those variances, such as they seek large departures from the code, such as a front setback from 40 feet to 13.5 feet, and the building to building separation from 35 to 14, and 3.4 unit per acre to the 1.7 acre. That's more than almost half. These are not the minimum necessary variances, and the hardship appears self-created, undermining public welfare and neighborhood compatibility. Impacts include the traffic and the turning movements of telegraph, the storm water and the grading risks, and the loss of the mature canopy with insufficient DBH replacement. So, if the board considers any relief, please condition approval on density at or below 1.7 unit per acre, and substantially restore the setbacks, and 100% on-site tree replacement by DBH. Independent traffic and the storm water third-party reviews are needed. A binding construction management plan with all those things. And especially that area is along of our neighborhood. Telegraph, so many cars, their tires, small particles, all the noises mostly absorb that area. They remove, and then we don't want that. Then one more thing.
Yes,
Thank you,
Chair. Because we've heard a lot of those points before, so we
Yeah,
appreciate that.
and-
You could wrap up?
So if the tree planting land is limited, then maybe substitute to the Temple Bethel, that the area, there are so many, the Bacon area, we can plant trees. So that's another substitute for plant trees by DBH.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else in the sixth row like to speak?
My name is Nancy Geetson, 6890 Cedarbrook. I represent the Birmingham Farms, thank you, opposition, and I want to once again emphasize our strong opposition to this proposed development for all the reasons stated so far. I want to talk about the berms and the buffers. The applicant had proposed just a 5-foot berm to mitigate noise from the 80,000 or so vehicles that travel Telegraph every day. For context, Bloomfield Chase has a 20-foot berm with trees extending the barrier an additional 10 to 30 feet. Hickory Ridge also has a 20-foot berm with trees, and those developments are on relatively flat terrain. By contrast, Telegraph north of this site to Maple and Telegraph is 70 feet higher than the enclave property, making noise impacts here even greater. Our neighborhood receives little to no buffering with this proposal. Meanwhile, the development and the temple benefit from placing the detention pond along Telegraph and the southern property line and pushing the proposed units north and west directly against existing lots. Once again, the concerns of the residents, the current residents, are being disregarded. On a related note, I want to acknowledge that there are alternatives to a detention pond, which is artificially pushing all of these homes further from the temple and Telegraph and into the existing community. Underground detention systems are a feasible option and will allow for more flexibility, with open space. I'm urging the board to please consider these circumstances when assessing the density and area hardships allegedly faced. And the applicants, a lot of what, it's like self-made. It's self-made in nature, okay? I want to urge the board to remove the detention acreage from the density calculations previously discussed, given that this was an optional feature elected by the applicant. If the detention pond were replaced by underground detention systems, and this project was scaled back with fewer units, which would be great, there would be room for the proper berms and buffers that the residents deserve. Once again, density is the root cause of all of this, and the residents are being asked to pay the price. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the sixth row?
6995 Sandalwood, or Lisa, and also on behalf of my mother, Helen. They've lived there for over 40 years, and now I'm there with my mother, and I share the concerns and the opposition of this construction project and the development. I'm here to say that. I agree with what's been presented to you, and I hope you really do take it into consideration and understand that the people of that neighborhood are very concerned about it and oppose it. Thank you.
Thank you for your succinct comments. Anyone else in the sixth row? All right, let's go to the seventh row now. Nope, we got one more in the sixth row.
Jamie Alquiza, 4397 Stony River Drive. Just like a couple blocks away, I just wanted to speak to the part where, we talked about perceived homeowner valueship. So I'm somebody who lived in Michigan, moved away, moved back, and one of the reasons I picked this area was the way it looked, right? The trees. It's like, how do you actually differentiate the price of Bloomfield versus like Rochester, right? It's like why are the houses more expensive? You can find these places that strip away all the trees, and the plan is they're arborvitae, right? It's 2 rows of arborvitae. Like I've got those in my yard. They don't work. I've got 15 feet arborvitae, and you could see my pool through them. I think that if I were shopping my house 5 years ago and I saw this plan, I wouldn't pay what I did for my house. I mean, it's ugly, it's repetitive. I think that, trying to use the argument they'd stake their reputation on building something they're proud of. I don't think that's true. They got a 1.6 star review on Yelp. That's when I give their design plan.
So I'm not sure how this is relevant to the variances that we're being asked to consider, so.
No, just I oppose it because I don't like the design of it. The only thing that makes me feel better about companies making designs like this is they're going to be replaced by middle schoolers using ChatGPT, maybe. I don't know. But that's all. I oppose it. It's ugly.
Anyone else in the sixth row? So we'll go to the seventh row. Anyone in the seventh row that'd like to speak?
My name is Aman Dillon, 7127 Glen Grove Drive. I represent Bingham Farms and in opposition, and I want to emphasize our strong opposition to the proposed development for reasons stated so far. The applicant stated that the plan to remove 500 trees, and also heard them to describe the parcel as full of low-quality species, cottonwood, buckthorn, and box elders. The narrative makes it sound that the trees does not matter, but the fact shows otherwise. Our community obtained the tree studies which contain full tree inventory for the site. I am not sure if one of your board members had an opportunity to actually see the property, but here's what the data shows. The applicant surveyed 491 trees and proposing to remove 485, that is 98.7 clear cutting. According to 2007 Township matter plans, buckthorns and box elders are considered invasive, but cottonwoods are not. Yet, the applicant is attempting to remove cottonwoods from the equation. Only 62 of those trees are buckthorns or box elders. That is just 13%, which means 87% of the trees are high-quality species. Those includes American elm, Norwegian pine, white pine, Scott pine, redwood, ginkgo, Japanese, black cherry, and many of these trees stand over 100 feet tall. Let me highlight my remarks. Trees among the 20 plus were believed to be 100 years old based upon the available average growth factors. Tag 168, black cherry, estimate 157-year-old. Tag 217, redbud, estimate 201-year-old. Tag 754, ginkgo, estimate 133-year-old. Also the extraordinary tag 779, dawn redwood. This tree measures 37.2 inches in diameter.
So you're opposed to the number of trees that they're removing? Is that what you want us to
I'm coming
understand?
to the point, sir, yes.
Okay.
So The tree measures is 13.72 inches, diameter stand over 100 feet tall, and is in good condition. The Dawn redwood is classified as critical endangered and International Union of Conservation Nature. It was once thought that to be extinct, but often been living fossil. No monetary contribution of the township fund can replace these trees. Only true replacement is the seed, decades upon decades of growth, and lots of luck. If the project proceed as proposed, these trees and hundreds of others will be gone forever. I urge the board to act with extreme caution before approving what cannot be undone. And my second thing is in the second proposed plan.
So you're now out of time?
Okay, and just one thing, the second alternate plan, they have it, they do not have, you even have the retention pond in that. If you take a look on the map, please.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the seventh row back there?
My name is Raj Dillon, 7127 Glengrove Drive. I feel really sad that so many big trees are going to be cut down. The animals and birds living on those trees won't have any home anymore. Blue jays, cardinals, bunny, deer, turkey, coyote all live in these woods. All the time, me with my friends go in those woods to explore because we don't have any parks in Bloomfield. I have to go to Innovation Hills and Rochester Hills to play. Please don't take away Bloomfield nature.
Thank you. Anyone else in the seventh row?
Sarah Markowitz, 7181 Glengrove Drive. First of all, the reason that Chris is not living in the subdivision is because his house was damaged in an accident when someone drove into it several months ago, and it's still under reconstruction. So it's a little hard for him to be living in the subdivision. Anyway, the Design Review Board, back several months ago, was discussed and agreed by both the applicant and the township, according to the minutes, that if normal single-family subdivision standards applied, only 14 homes would be built on this land. That statement alone proves beyond a reasonable doubt that a standard subdivision is possible here, in that property. The property shape is not unusual. The environmental features are not restrictive. Most, in fact, are proposed to be eliminated under this plan. There is nothing inherent in this land that prevents a traditional subdivision. We feel the only restriction is financial, and that is not a valid basis under your ordinances. If the applicant does not find it profitable enough to build a smaller, more appropriate subdivision that aligns with the character of our entire community, then that's the applicant's problem, not ours. Selecting the clustering option and then requesting over 100 variances is a self-created problem. We ask you to uphold the ordinance and reject the misuse of the clustering option. Thank you.
Thank you. That was well organized. Anyone else in the seventh row?
Chris Gagnon, 6529 Cathedral Drive. Apologies for my tardiness. I had a family commitment, and I was just leaving that now, pre-existing, before this meeting was rescheduled.
I think you were safe to come late to this meeting.
I figured as much. Thank you to everybody who's here. In just a few hours, I'll have the honor of serving as president of the Birmingham Farms HOA. Alongside several neighbors who are here tonight, I look forward to working with our community and looking out for the interests of all residents in that role. I want to be clear, my comments tonight and in early communication with this board are my own, and they also reflect the voices of many residents here in opposition to this proposal. I understand that some see potential in this development, perhaps as something attractive to the greater community or to meet a market demand. But with respect, that cannot be the township's priority when the number and magnitude of variances are so extreme and when consequences for existing residents would be so severe. The residents' well-being, the value of their property, and the character of the neighborhood in which they live are all on the line, and it is this board's responsibility to protect them. This proposal fails in many ways: no density transition, grossly insufficient tree replacement, and a long list of major variances that cannot be reasonably justified. I cannot tell you exactly what should be built here, but I can tell you with confidence, this isn't it. On behalf of my neighbors in opposition, I ask for you, the board, to listen to their concerns. The township owes it to them, and they sure as heck deserve it. Thank you for your time.
So Chris, we did mention your email prior to starting the public hearing. We had the current president speak. I gave him 5 minutes. Is there anything else you would like to quickly add? Because you're going to be the representative tomorrow, and I'd like to give you equal time. Do you want anything else?
I do appreciate that.
What do you feel is important for us to remember?
I mean, the points that I made in that email, I can speak to the specific variances. I'm not sure what may or may, well, I know some of the topics that have been spoken up until this point. Most notably, the density transition, the fact that the single or the one-family residential cluster option itself requires there to be a transition of density away from the as you move away from the thoroughfare, less density. There's twice as much density beyond the 360 feet. I know there were a couple different diagrams I think that I saw in the packet. The densities were a little bit off. There's a little bit of inconsistency. I figured as much.
Yeah.
But I would say that's absolutely the key point. I mean, frankly, this proposal, it doesn't fit.
Okay.
I understand that they're trying to amend it to what they want. I can see why. They have the right to request these variances, but at the end of the day, this is not representative of what that section of the ordinance is intended to create.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else in the seventh row?
Are we going down one side and
Yes. Yep.
the next side?
Yep. Then then we're going to go front to back this way. So anyone else in that seventh row? Okay.
Hi, my name is Raga Seyfuddin. I'm at 6956 Cedar Brook Drive. That's right against the north part of the Robertson proposed development. My entire backyard, basically my shelter from life, work, and all kinds of stresses, my backyard is going to probably go away forever, 3, 4, 5 years, whatever it takes. I'm here to just register my opposition to this current development plan as is. It needs to be better. It needs to be redone so that it takes into account the needs and the consideration of the neighborhood. You know, law-abiding, tax-paying, long-standing members of a vibrant community. I've been there since 2003. I love it. This I don't love. I'm here to register my objection to the plan as it is currently structured. And thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for your well-organized thoughts. Anyone else in the seventh row? All right, anybody against the wall that hasn't spoken? I think there's one. I appreciate your patience. I know you're one of the people that was standing earlier, so.
Hi, good afternoon. My
Thank
name
you.
is Jasmine Sidhu, and I live in 7127 Glen Grove Drive. So whatever this situation, our HOA is new, and Chris is the president, I'm the secretary. So I'm sorry for whatever has happened, but we are going with our neighbors, went door to door. There is a lot of variance. We oppose this proposal. So there is a water issues, there is trees, lot of variances in there. I'm in the oppose of this.
Thank you very much. Anyone else along the wall? All right. Now we're going to go over on this side of the room. So hold on. Wait a minute. Hold on. I'm sorry, you're going to have to sit down. The first row, is it? Okay. So, yeah. So, well, there's empty seats there, so.
Hi, thank you so much for having this meeting. Francis Martins, 7479 Cathedral. I am a member of Temple Bethel for over 60 years. I've lived in Birmingham Farms for 51 years, actually, this month. So, I look at this completely differently I was so ecstatic to hear about this sale because I see win, 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 where everybody else is looking at the negative side of it. I feel very strongly that Temple Bethel is going to sell that land. I'm not speaking for Temple Bethel. There are presidents here and so on, that is. I'm speaking about what I think I know about Temple Bethel. That land's going to get sold. And I'm ecstatic that it's sold to Robertson Brothers, because maybe all of you don't know that. My house, I'm pretty sure, was built by Robertson Brothers. He lived in the sub, I was told, and a lot of your houses were. They're good builders. They've had to analyze this project. They're doing marketing. They know what the market needs. So Temple Bethel's going to benefit. That's number one. I think the subdivision's going to benefit. The houses are going to be more, don't compare new to old. I disagree with that, because they're building more expensive units than our houses are. So I think our properties are going to go up. I understand that they bent over backwards to put trees. I think I heard, I don't know if this is true, they're going to put trees in people who live in the sub if they don't feel that they have enough benefit from the shield. I think that's extraordinary. You guys, this third benefit is you got all of us in Bloomfield Township. You're going to start collecting taxes. And I don't know if there's any representative here from the shopping center, but I'm thinking about the shopping center, getting more people, because what is it, 3/4 of a mile to walk or to bicycle? You know, think about Steve's, Andiamo's, all of those, as well as the gym over there. And CVS just remodeled their prescription area. They're not going anywhere. I just see this as 4 wins. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, I was going to skip over the second row because anyone that receives compensation from Robertson Brothers would not be eligible to speak. Oh, no, I know that. Mr. Robertson, you're going to have, you'll have time for rebuttal later. So we'll now go to the third row. Or compensation at any time in their lifetime from Robertson Brothers.
Good evening. My name is Steve Weiner. I live at 4339 Spruce Hill Lane in the Township. I've been a resident for almost 30 years. I'm a former president of Temple Bethel, and I've had the pleasure of working with Robertson Brothers closely on this for more than 2 years. So I'm representing the Temple tonight. I'm the group representative. I won't take a full 5 minutes.
3 minutes.
This project is very favorable. It's a very favorable development for the Temple. It provides a meaningful security buffer on our north side, which is currently a low-quality forested wetland and an area from which those who might do harm to our institution could invade our property. It's a shame that we have to think about our security in this manner, but this is the reality for Jewish institutions in the United States today. Secondly, the enclave offers housing that would be great for our congregants who could walk to Temple. And thirdly, the sale of our orphan property, which is separated from our main parcel by a third-party 5-acre parcel, has been a challenge for us for years. We've been approached many times over the past 2 decades by developers who have presented a variety of options, but this one was the first one that made sense to us, both financially and in terms of density. We believe Robertson has made an extraordinary effort to work with the neighbors, the township, and the consultants to address density, wetlands, setbacks, and buffers. It's my opinion that the concerns expressed by Birmingham Farms subdivision residents seem to be based more on fear than on science. For example, 100% of the traffic in and out of this project will be off of Telegraph Road, so it seems to me that there will be no traffic impact on our neighbors. Secondly, your Wetlands Review Board has confirmed that the proposal will provide an improved functioning wetland that will be larger and more attractive than the existing condition and improve water flow across the property. Also, the existing trees are mostly considered poor quality and in some cases invasive species. This is not a maple beech hardwood forest. The replacement trees will more than make up for the existing trees and provide meaningful buffers for noise and visual impact for the neighbors. And finally, the fears regarding drainage are really not based in science. Robertson's engineers have presented a plan that not only accommodates 100% of the drainage requirements created by the development, but will also absorb additional drainage from the Birmingham Farm subdivision by virtue of installation of subterranean piping that will move water flow from the perimeter of the development to the stormwater system. The neighbors haven't really presented any analysis or science justifying their fear regarding drainage. And furthermore, Robertson took the initiative to provide engineered services to evaluate the drainage problems at Birmingham Farms, which could hopefully lead to recommended solutions for the homeowners. Finally, it seems to me that the variances in front of you are almost exclusively caused by the fact that the residential zoning ordinances in the township have not been materially updated in over 20 years, and that has forced developers to propose workarounds to address changes in the marketplace. Why not count trees in the buffer? Why force density to the front of the road? It's unfortunate, in my opinion, that the ZBA has to take on such a challenge, but it's the consequence of outdated ordinance. And so I thank you for your volunteer service, and I admire your dedication to the township. In summary, this will be a very good project for the temple. It will generate, according to numbers confirmed by Treasurer Shostak, over $210,000 of incremental tax revenue. That's net tax revenue. And the parcel, it will take a parcel that's owned by multiple properties and generate an attractive and beneficial use. And the project with its proposed density
You'll
of
need to just wrap up. You've
Yeah.
got a lot
Yeah.
of good comments, but we need to move on.
This private property will eventually be developed. So please help us ensure that something nice is done here that will be a meaningful contribution to the community and help provide security for our congregation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And as far as your comment, that it's unfortunate for us to have to consider this as we train for these types of situations, so we're ready for this. So anyone else in the third row?
Hi, my name's Gary Bice. I live at 6130 Idlewild in the township. I've been a resident for over 35 years, and I'm a proud member of Congregation Bethel. I'm here to throw my support for this project with the variances in place. I think from everything I have done, my due diligence, the speaking to experts that I've had a chance to do to look over the detailed reports that they've put through, I'm very comfortable with the decision that they've proposed. And I look at this project for a couple reasons. I think the safety net that will be wrapped around Temple Bethel is absolutely critical for our membership. This is really important to me, so that's number one. Secondly, I live in an area around Maple and Franklin where there's all kinds of development. They're tearing down ranch homes, and we have beautiful oak trees that they're tearing down, and I'm sickened by that. However, every time they do that, the neighbors have put up these beautiful trees to replace them, and the homes that have been put up are much, much nicer than what was there. So I think, thinking about the trees, I have cottonwoods. I would just assume these things are all gone because they're awful trees. Finally, as somebody who's looking at downsize, I think this development is exactly the kind of place that I would look to move to. It's a ranch style. It's small enough. It's not. It does have space between the houses. This is the kind of place that somebody in my age, I'm almost 70. This is what I'm looking for, and there's not that many places available for this type of area in the Bloomfield Township. So I'm encouraging, keep this project in place. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the third row? Third row? The fourth row. Anyone in the fourth row would like to speak?
Good evening. My name's David Handelman. I live at 1252 Cottingham Row in the township. I'm here in support of this action. My family is a multi-generational involvement with Temple Bethel, and my father was actually at the groundbreaking when they built the current facility on 14 Mile Road. And if you fast forward many decades, I became the president of Temple Bethel. And I want to speak directly to the security issue. While I was president, there was a phone call received from the FBI. This is more than a decade ago. And they told us then that we need to change our perimeter, and we had to put more trees in. If you went by Temple Bethel 20 years ago, it was all glass, and you could look in and the temple could look out. Now, if you go by Temple Bethel, there's all kinds of trees, and you can't look in. And the members, they look out now and they see beautiful trees, but they don't have the other views. So the idea of when this new development happens and the security, it's not just a word security. There's a real reason to it. One of the earlier speakers, Mr. Weiner, spoke about, we live in a world that nobody thought we'd have to live in. But I just want to put that in there. And so it was and it wasn't something we did. Again, the FBI came to us. So that security is really important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the fourth row that'd like to speak?
My name is Jim Deutschman, 26515 Scenic. I'm also a past president of Bethel. We've lived in this area for 41 years. The big concern we have is obviously the security. Right now we have roughly a 12-acre parcel which is easy to hide into. The concern we had was heightened about 2 years ago when somebody came onto the property and threatened the little kids, threatened the families, and he was just sent to jail recently. This is a very frightening time. We're very concerned about the property. We feel very strongly about the enhancement that it will make, not only to the development itself, but also the adjoining Birmingham Farms subdivisions. As Judy indicated, the incredible value will rise in the adjoining properties. And we're confident that this will be a successful development. And we hope that you approve it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else in the fourth row?
Good evening. My name is George Blady, 7455 Glen Grove Drive. I don't want to regurgitate anything in the spirit of brevity.
That was our request. Thank you for you're going to adhere to that.
People's eyes are just like rolling in the back of their heads. I'm not going to regurgitate anything, but I do want to state one thing. I'm looking right at Carol because I think it's noteworthy. You're very skilled. You've operated in this industry, and I did capture something that was a little bit peculiar and frankly a little bit unnerving. You had cited, would this project basically, to kind of paraphrase, be junked if we reduced it from 38 to 36 units? Mm-hmm. Valid request, right? That's not unreasonable, right? And the gentleman turned to you and said, in effect, as part of his reply, are you looking for a pound of flesh? That, to me, is very illuminating. That's a major red flag, because that delineates the developer's mentality. Don't lose sight of it. Shine a light on it. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else in the fourth row? All right, we'll go to the fifth row. Anyone in the fifth row that would like to speak?
Try to make this quick.
That's much appreciated.
Although it's still going to end up being 3 minutes.
I tried. Okay.
Paul Williamson, 7130 Wing Lake Road. Higher population densities increase emergency calls. Without investment in fire stations, equipment, and staffing, response times will suffer, directly impacting life safety of the surrounding area. The smallest fire station will be assigned to this area. It is. It's already strained due to the existing EMS demand. As a pro-boarded fire apparatus driver operator with 30 years of operational experience, I am still a firefighter. The streets are dangerously thin. One car will prevent access to the rest of that neighborhood. The variances reduce street width, parking setbacks, and turning radiuses, or radii. Fire trucks and ambulances require clearances that this tight, crowded layout does not allow for.
Narrow streets then lead to higher challenges with evacuation during fires, gas leaks, natural disasters, and it makes all of that significantly harder, increasing risk to both residents and first responders. The extra land that was mentioned, if you stuck to the 10-acre plot, could be donated to the township for a pocket park, aligning with the recently completed Bloomfield Township strategic plan, where the community cited parks as their #1 priority. And we don't have any, because the original master plan from when this township was formed said our country clubs are our parks. It actually says that in the master plan. Doesn't now, but it did. Limited parking leads to vehicles blocking fire lanes and hydrants, narrowing access roads, which is obviously dangerous and hampers emergency response. Multiple variances reveal the development does not fit the land or community as intended. Zoning protections exist for safety and livability. Bypassing them undermines both. If a project can only proceed by stacking variances, it is fundamentally incompatible with the site. At about 3 units per acre, the current township master plan standard, traffic would be 40% less. Even then, MDOT traffic studies for similar properties in the area show it would be roughly the same level as the projected traffic level under this proposal. In other words, increasing density does not solve traffic issues, it only compounds them. It just makes sense is the same point that was made a little over 10 years ago by the developer of the northwest corner of Maple and Telegraph Road when they wanted to put a 3-story high-density storage facility there. As we know, smarter designs prevailed. I'll wrap up. I apologize. We all support growth, but it must be responsible. This project with so many variances places safety, infrastructure, and quality of life at risk. I urge you to protect both our community and our first responders by rejecting this proposal in its current form.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the 4th row? The 5th row? Anyone else in the 5th row?
Hello. My name is Nick Petrucia. I live at 6998 Sandalwood Drive. And to not be repetitive, I simply want to firmly echo everything previously said by the opposition. At the end of the day, we moved to Bloomfield Township to start a family. I feel that accepting the variance requests will be a detriment to the area we want our children to grow up in. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else in the 5th row?
Good evening. I'm Olivia Steele, and I live at 6998 Sandalwood Drive, and I represent the Birmingham Farms opposition. My fiance and I are among the newer residents who chose to make Birmingham Farms our home. We moved here because of the green space, the sense of community, and the neighborhood with character, the sense of community and a neighborhood with character that values appropriate density. When we made that decision, we knew we were joining a place where homes fit that setting and where residents looked out for one another. That's what makes Birmingham Farms so attractive, not just to families like mine, but to anyone who wants to invest in their future here. What's being proposed with the enclave is completely out of step with those values. Dropping in a high-density development at a nearly 3-to-1 ratio compared to surrounding homes disrupts everything that drew us here in the first place. It replaces greenery and balance with overcrowding and years of disruption. This township has a responsibility to preserve the qualities that make neighborhoods like ours thrive. I urge you to protect the community we moved here for and say no to a project that undermines its character. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. So we've got the next person in that row. Thank you for being proactive.
Good evening. I'm Joan Dunbar, and I live at 7196 Glengrove Drive, and I've lived there for 38 years, so I'm one of the seniors in our current Birmingham Farms development. And I really would like to reaffirm the very strong opposition that you've heard tonight to this proposed development. And in addition to all of the previous concerns, I want to specifically address the construction timeline and the environmental disruptions that would result directly from the large number of variances requested to permit for the overly dense enclave housing development. According to the applicant, construction of the project is expected to take 4 to 5 years after approval. That was noted at the May 21st Design Review Board meeting, and it was also noted today by the applicant. While this time frame may appear reasonable to some, those of us who are directly affected by the noise, dust, dirt, and environmental pollution associated with such a dense and extensive project, this is an unacceptably long period of time. It is important that the length of the timeline and the negative impact is a result of the plan to clear all trees and natural buffers from the site with no timely replenishment. And I do appreciate that the board members today actually brought up, can we replant some of those trees at the beginning of the construction? I would like to voice that I don't think a few 14-foot trees are going to have any of the noise effect that 100-foot trees of very large girth are going to do. So I don't think that just replanting smaller trees is going to affect the disruption that we will feel during this time. Additionally, the applicant intends to construct homes only as they are purchased. By their own admission, this would mean building 1 or 2 homes per month, extending the construction process over several years. No doubt, the stated 4 to 5 year timeline is likely optimistic and a best-case scenario, with additional factors such as weather, supply chain issues, who these days can even say what supply chain issues may occur, consumer demand potentially causing further delays. The extended construction period places an undue burden on current homeowners, especially those living along Cedarbrook, Glengrove, and White Pine. These residents would face a barren landscape separating their homes from Telegraph Road. Nobody has doubted the noise that currently exists along Telegraph Road. Consider now a barren landscape which would amplify the road noise into the subdivision, in addition to the actual noise of the ongoing construction itself. The inevitable result would be a reduced quality of life, decreased property values for the duration of the project. I emphasize that this is not short-term. The size and scope of the development project predicts a long-term destruction of the peace, tranquility, ambience, aesthetics, safety, and environment of the current neighborhood. These concerns have already been documented in previous letters to the Board of Trustees.
So could you start to wrap up your...
Yep,
your
I will do it right now. The
Thank you.
requested variances would permit far too many homes, resulting in unnecessarily prolonged construction and direct widespread impacts on the surrounding neighbors and neighborhood. The enclave development should not be approved in its current form and iteration. Thank you for your time and for your full consideration of these concerns.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the fifth row?
Hi. I'm Effie Steele, 1387 Club Drive. New 2024 strategic plan contributor. May I have 5 minutes?
I'm sorry.
Oh,
no.
okay.
Yeah.
No problem. Moving on.
Yeah. As a strategic plan contributor, I'm sure you can strategically make your comments in 3 minutes.
Abbreviate. Okay, can you start my clock again
Yeah,
then?
let's start the
Since
clock.
we're-
All right, I interrupted you,
Okay,
so we'll
all
start
right,
your clock at 3.
Thanks. Okay, so I'm opposed to this enclave site plan. I agree wholeheartedly with the large contingent of opposition. Everyone that we've heard here, minus 2 people that are for this plan, don't live in the neighborhood. The project is a disaster waiting to happen. I'd like you all to take a look at this photograph.
Yeah, you sent us that already.
Okay, well, what I'd like to do is talk about what they've done in the past. Bloomfield Chase is not what we're comparing this to. We're comparing this to is Mill Ridge. This is what Mill Ridge looked like a year after they broke ground. And in our case, this would be Telegraph. So a barren land with a little retaining pond and homes. So the neighborhood is going to be subjected to this for 4 years. Breathing heavy toxic chemicals, listening to the noise, breathing the dust, a very unhealthy environment. So if you look at the variances here, and this is why we're supposed to be here, is the variances, and I've counted them individually. If you count them individually, there are 212, not counting the trees. This isn't just bad planning, it's disgraceful. Chairman Saltz of the Planning Committee, who contributed to the current master plan, stated immediately that this was not compliant and voted against it. Dr. Patinga from the Planning Committee was immediately opposed. Supervisor McCready, Treasurer Shostak, and Clerk Brook all voiced concerns about the density during the Design Committee meeting. Our township clerk said it best. This proposal is a square peg trying to fit in a round hole. He was right. On behalf of that neighborhood, I urge you to stand firm, put on your white hats because it's gotten to you, even though it really shouldn't have, in my opinion, with this plan, and protect the community. Say no to this proposal. 38 is ridiculous. If you recommend a much less dense development, we will still insist that the caliper shortage of mature trees be planted in the adjoining streets of the subdivision prior to clear cutting. We have already chosen areas which can accommodate them. Also, we will insist on the 14-foot double evergreen buffer be planted immediately after drainage component of the development, so there is partial protection of the health of the neighborhood from the mass clear-cutting wasteland. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the fifth row?
All right. My name is Julian Deschner. I'm from 6924 Cedarbrook Drive. So, the single-family clustering option imposes specific requirements. Generally, developments are limited to a depth of 360 feet, unless other criteria are met. If extending beyond 360 feet, density cannot exceed 1.7 units per acre. To quote our township clerk, to qualify as a cluster development, the proposal should show higher density along Telegraph Road, with a transition to lower density in the rear. The township's PBO department concurred with this interpretation according to the May 21st design review meeting packet. This is consistent with the language of the zoning ordinance, which specifically mandates a transition of density. This rule exists for a reason, to protect surrounding residents and place high-density housing nearest to thoroughfares. Yet, this applicant has done the opposite. Not only are they proposing to exceed the 1.7 units per acre requirement, they are effectively doubling it. Let me repeat, they are doubling the number of allowable units in the rear of the property. And rather than transitioning to lower density near our homes, they flipped the design, placing lower density near the road and the highest density directly against existing residents. This is unacceptable, and to be honest, it's highly disrespectful to the surrounding community and not the least bit neighborly. Granting a variance for such a blatant violation would make a mockery of our town's ordinance. If creating zoning tools such as this clustering option are allowed to be fully manipulated to the applicant's liking, then why bother having an ordinance? Why have a master plan? This method has now been reviewed for how to assess density numerically in relation to the surrounding community, and I'm going to offer a second. Believe your eyes. Look at the aerial depiction of this proposal compared to the surrounding community. It is obvious that this development does not fit. It clashes with the established character of Birmingham Farms, a character that the township is obligated to protect. Your eyes do not deceive you. This proposal simply does not belong. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else in the fifth row? All right, we'll move to the sixth row.
All right, hi, my name is Paul Phillips. I live at 7290 Glen Grove Drive. In 1994, I graduated from Losser High School. Yes, I am that old. Since that time, I've lived around the world, and I've lived in prestigious communities in the United States and abroad. And when my family was returning to Michigan in 2018, I had many options of where to move to, and we chose Bloomfield Township, partly because I grew up here, but in large part due to the character of Bloomfield Township and what it is that makes Bloomfield Township Bloomfield Township. I saw the proposal and I see the units, and that looks nice. It would fit really nicely in Canton or in Novi or in Northville, and those are all fine communities, but they're not Bloomfield Township. The density that's proposed, the sheer volume of variances that they're asking for tell the story. It doesn't matter that the plan is old. That number of variances is too many to fit the character of Bloomfield Hills, and that density does not fit the character of Bloomfield Hills. I love the temple, and I love the people who attend there, and I love having them as neighbors, and I think it's a beautiful property, and I don't believe that this proposal is even in keeping with the beauty and the character of Temple Bethel. As a resident, as someone who's deliberately chosen to raise my own children here, I would ask the board to act on behalf of Bloomfield Township and consider what is the character of Bloomfield Hills and Bloomfield Township, and what do you want it to be, and what do you want your legacy to be with this development? All right, thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else in the sixth row there, against the back? Anyone else? Okay. Back row there? Yeah, I think I am.
Good evening. Mark Deschner, 6924 Cedarbrook. Sorry. All right, good evening, members of the board. The variances before you tonight are not minor adjustments. They are an attempt to rewrite what Bloomfield Township is and what it is always meant to be. Our ordinance and our master plan were created for a reason. They were not put in place to be bent every time a developer wants to maximize profits. Yet, that is exactly what's happening here. The proposal is not about preserving the township. It is about one developer cramming as many units as possible into a piece of land to increase their returns, with thousands of residents paying the price in the last green space, traffic, and erosion of our community's character. Let me remind you of what our unanimously approved master and strategic plans say. Trees and green spaces that provide a tranquil setting are preserved. Large lots and density requirements are protected. Wetlands are safeguarded and ordinance strengthened to ensure preservation. How does jamming 38 condominiums into 12.5 acres serve these goals? It does not. It violates them. It undermines every standard that keeps Bloomfield Township unique. In the developer's defense, the cluster option, which doesn't apply. The option was designed for parcels of 10 acres or less and intended for properties along Telegraph. The project does not qualify. Stretching the cluster option this far turns it from a planning tool into a loophole for overbuilding. Approving this would send a message that the rules don't matter, that the ordinance can't be ignored, and that the developer's profits outweigh residents' quality of life. We are not Birmingham, we're not Royal Oak, we're not Canton, we are Bloomfield Township. And your duty on this board is not to serve developers, it is to serve the residents and to protect the integrity of the community. This plan with its excessive density benefits one developer and harms thousands of residents. It threatens our green space, our tranquility, and the character of our township. It goes against the master plan, the strategic plan, and the will of the community you represent. I urge you to stand with the residents, stand with the master plan, deny these variances, and protect the Bloomfield Township we love. Because once the character of the Bloomfield Township is gone, it's gone forever, and no amount of developer profit will bring it back. That's it. Oh, and Chris, Paul and Mick said to tell me to tell you to say hi.
Thank you. Anyone else in the sixth row against the back?
Hi,
Hi, I'm Marcy Deschner, 6924 Cedar Brook.
Yeah, I saw your name on the Facebook page.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
so
you.
did you
Yes,
create the
I
Facebook
did.
page? Okay.
I did, yes. I have a couple points to make, and then I'll just wrap up quickly. I think everything's pretty much been said. I did want to thank everyone for their time tonight. Our neighbors have put in a great deal of time and energy into speaking, and we're very thankful. I'd also like to reiterate that part of the problem and reason why we're still here today is that our past HOA, they unfairly made a deal with Robertson for Robertson to pay for entrance signs for our sub.
So, you know, I saw that on the Facebook page,
Yeah.
and that's really not in front of us, so we don't need those facts or those
What happened with that is they
allegations.
also wanted no opposition and they wanted support, and they wanted certain members to come to meetings and support them. And that's where we were unable to get certain communication, certain dates and timelines. And although it'd be nice if they still wanted to help our sub or do something for our sub, maybe help with the drainage and so forth, that would be great. More trees would be great. We don't really need signs. It was never put to vote. There was a letter that went out, and it basically said, we made this deal, we'd like a survey. And of the people that responded, it was actually 14-5 in opposition. 14-8 if you include the 3 board members who put the deal together. So it's been very troubling because we would like a seat at the table. We would like to have a discussion or be looking at something that is a vetted plan. We feel it's very one-sided. It benefits the temple, it benefits the developer, and there's little, if anything, benefit for us as residents. We would prefer more berms and buffers. We would prefer the density allocation spread to be more towards Telegraph. We would prefer actually R1 housing, leave it as R1 housing. That's what it is, just keep it the same. We'd like to see a plan that takes into consideration maybe not a large retention pond, and we see facts and figures that include it and not include it, and have a density of in the 20s, which we all talked about, is a much more reasonable number for our community and is in line with the character of Bloomfield Township. We respectfully wish that you would reject this proposal as is. It's not a plan, it's profit-driven, ordinance-breaking, and entirely out of step with the township's vision for its future. And in conclusion, on behalf of my neighbors, those who stood here tonight, those who held signs, who attended multiple design board, planning commission, and wetlands meetings, the 400 residents who signed a petition, I respectfully urge you to reject the proposal as submitted. Enforce the rules, protect the master plan, preserve the character of our neighborhood, send a clear message that Bloomfield Township will not sacrifice its residents and its future just to enrich a developer. Thank you again for your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the back row who would like to speak, or anyone else who would like to speak? All right, I'm going to close the public hearing, and we can have a response from the developer. So, Tim, I don't know if you want to speak. I know Mr. Robertson was getting up.
First, just say a couple things, that'd be great.
Yes.
Could you bring up that slide on the density, the zoning up and down Telegraph? Hi, my name's Paul Robertson, 6905 Telegraph Road, Bloomfield Township. I can safely say that I've lived in that neighborhood longer than anybody in this room since I moved there in 1952. So I lived across the street in Franklin, right around the corner from the property. You know, we know everybody wants to leave that property vacant. That happens every single time we do a project. Nobody wants us to develop, ever. I'll never forget, I was in Bingham Farms, and I was doing a presentation, and I sat back down, and the guy tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Do people react like this in every single project you do?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, it's always that way." He said, "You know, it's a wonder any of us have a house to live in." You know, we have a simple philosophy at Robertson Brothers, started by my dad, and that's to find out what people want and to give it to them. And that's all we're trying to do on this project. We know what people in Bloomfield Township want to live in now.
There's enough, Leave It to Beaver family, 4-story, 4-bedroom colonials in the township to satisfy that need for a long time. But the need for people in 1-story houses, like I need, is not met. And there's nowhere in your ordinance that does that. There's nowhere in your ordinance that allows us to do that. We built 3 of the largest projects in the township. Hickory Heights, Adams Woods, and the Heathers. In the case of Adams Woods, that zoning was 1.7 units to the acre. And the township knew that we had a freeway that ran right through the middle of it. And they knew that was inappropriate zoning, but they didn't have a zoning ordinance. So what did we do? We had a friendly lawsuit, and then they settled it for the kind of density that we have in Adams Woods, which is probably 5 or 6 or 7 to the acre. At the Heathers, there was no ordinance for a project that had a freeway all the way around it. Excuse me.
Could you please put the signs down?
So if I was 20 years younger, I might be able to read those. I can't read those. I know it's a practice, so I don't know if anyone else can read them, but it's not helping him.
So in that case, the township knew that they didn't have appropriate zoning there either. And so they wrote us a special ordinance that allowed us 4 units to the acre because of all the exposure to the freeway, because of the wetlands, because it was an old gravel pit, because of all the stuff we needed to do to it. We had more variances at Bloomfield Grove than we're asking for tonight, to be able to do the same thing here that we did at Bloomfield Grove, which was to do a master bedroom down ranch project. We don't want to compete with Bingham, with Birmingham Farms. We don't want to do that. We don't want to build colonies. I'm going to tell you, there's no developer that's going to do a single-family subdivision in there with one entry onto Telegraph Road. All the mothers today would go crazy. They'd think about their kids walking out on Telegraph Road because that's the only way they could get out of the project. Can you bring up the Telegraph Road site that shows the uses? Yeah. You need to understand, vacant landowners.
Paul, Mr. Robinson, you got to talk to us.
Vacant.
So we're voting.
Okay, I know, I'm sorry. Vacant landowners have rights too, okay? It's not just the neighbors. The neighbors don't control what can go on there. And if you look at this site, you can see there's multifamily up and down Telegraph. There's office buildings. There's a temple. So if this project doesn't go, some other developer is going to take this, and the township will turn them down for multifamily, and they'll take it to a court that doesn't have anything they have no control over, and they'll rezone it to multifamily. And you're going to get 140 or 150 units on that site. And you know what? That's what's going to happen. And you know, I'm hoping that you, as a board, see that situation and understand the zoning laws and understand the rights of vacant property owners, and to vote for those variances that we need to do this project to give people what they want. Thank you.
So wait a minute, so I'm only allowed 2, so it's either you or Tim.
So I can't talk as a resident?
No, you missed your
Well,
chance.
because
Public comment.
you're on the payroll of Robertson Brothers, you're excluded.
I'm not on the payroll.
Well, if you've ever received compensation for Robertson Brothers, so I think you know what my point is. So you're not a disinterested opinion.
Mr. Chairman, I wanted to thank you and your board for an extremely well.
We're not done yet, so. Yeah.
Tim, before you start,
Sure.
I do feel like I need to make a comment. I have been an attorney for 46 years with a specialty in land use and zoning. I represent municipalities all over, including Bloomfield in zoning lawsuits. As such, I have dealt with Robertson Brother, I can't tell you how many times through the years, okay? And I just want to say the comment that was made about your organization really is not valid. I think it was inappropriate. You are a very reputable organization, and the communities I work with, work well with you.
Appreciate that, thank you. So did you want me to go kind of point by point of what I had written down? I had a lot.
Whatever you have on your list, we're prepared to hear, if you feel it's important at this point in the evening, which is
Late.
late.
So I'll be as
we're here for
succinct as
you.
I can be, for sure,
Yes.
thank you. And I do want to address these, so I think, again, there's a lot of good points that have come up.
And a lot was said, so.
Yeah. Just kind of going down on what I heard. So the berms, I heard a 5-foot berm. We're actually proposing an 8-foot berm, which is what the township had asked us to do. I think originally we probably had a 5 or 6-foot berm, but we are putting an 8-foot berm along Telegraph, which will add, obviously, more than what's existing. Right now, those trees, especially in the winter, I mean, the leaves are mostly down. So that will help that berm just in general. Sound goes up from that, from the berm as you go. Plus, our houses will count as a buffer, if you will. We'll have structures there where there's no structures right now. 38 or whatever number we can agree to. Those would act as a buffer for sound as well. So I wanted to make that point because I've heard that many times about the trees acting as a buffer. Well, we are putting in a berm. We are in the houses themselves, plus the 644 trees that we're putting in. So that is something that I heard that I wanted to address. Facts matter. I heard a lot of things about none of this. All of this is self-created. It's not. It's not self-created. We didn't create a drainage pattern that created the wetlands on the site or created the existing conditions. That wasn't us. That wasn't the temple. We didn't create the low area of the site being the southeast corner, as you mentioned. That really affects our site plan. That affects where we can place homes on the property. We didn't create Telegraph Road. That's quite a unique perspective. We're not in the middle of a neighborhood. We are on Telegraph Road. Everything you see along Telegraph Road is exactly what we're proposing. We're really not deviating from that. I've heard the parallel plan didn't have detention in the middle. It does. We can go to it. I could show it to you. There's a big detention pond in the middle of it. So I'm just trying to get everything out on the table that I heard. I keep hearing water issues. I'm happy. Nobody wants Brad Brickle to speak, especially Brad Brickle. But he can go ad nauseum. There are no water issues with our development. Somebody brought up trees, planting trees in adjacent neighborhood homes. We have agreed to that. That is something we do as an organization. And the whole purpose of this is we'll plant as much as we can on our property, but having trees on the actual neighbors' homes, on their lots, adds that additional buffer. We're willing to do that. I will meet with every single one of those homeowners. Luckily, it's only across the street. I don't have to drive very far. But we'll meet with them and we'll determine, and this is as we do development, where the best place for it is. And we've been very successful at that. And that's something we will agree to. We have agreed to it. I believe that was a condition of approval, but that was our recommendation. We're the ones that brought that up. So when we first looked at the site, we looked at the density overall in your township. We obviously had a vision for the property. We looked at all the existing neighborhoods that had the exact same conditions that we have, and none of them, not one of them, if somebody can find one, point it to me, none of them have a bunch of density within 360 feet and then no density beyond that. So I think that matters. I think that's something that is a pattern in the township. And just frankly, the ordinances, that's the hardship. Your ordinances are not basically up to date. And everything that I've seen has a blended density. I mentioned it even came up in a meeting for that Bloomfield Chase. They specifically approved it in the Planning Commission, the council. I don't know why we can't, Board of Trustees, I don't know why we can't do that here. All of a sudden, this is a variance that was not when we first started. And I don't believe it should be. The access, there was a comment about the fire marshal. This is fully vetted by fire. Turning radius all works. We've been through that. We've got templates on that. Fire marshal has completely signed off on it. They're actually very happy we're fire suppressing. But beyond that, the roads work, the turning radius works, the parking works. We have parking on one side. There's plenty of parking. Each unit has 2 spaces, plus the driveway, plus some street parking. So if there's an issue with the fire marshal, it'd be complete news to me because they've been very clear on their approval. But for the fire suppression, which we have agreed to do. I heard the construction timeline a lot. Jim gave me quite an earful. We will build this as we sell homes. Frankly, 38 homes, this will probably sell out in a year and a half. We will be able to move through it. It's probably going to be 2 to 3 years. But I try to be as truthful as I can. But this would be probably a 3-year project at the most. The replanting of the trees at the beginning of the project, happy to do that. I think that's a good suggestion. That's not a problem whatsoever. There's some challenges we'd have with that, but we will overcome that and we'll make that happen. So that's something we're happy to put in as a condition of approval. 212 variances, I don't understand that. You saw how many variances. There's very few. There's a couple of dimensional variances, there's a couple of natural feature variances, and then obviously the permission requests, which are pretty standard. I heard square peg and a round hole that was mentioned in the by the Board of Trustees and the DRB. That was essentially because your ordinances don't allow anything like this. It's not a square peg, meaning we don't fit in the community. This project fits in your community. It's been built numerous times along Telegraph. This is a successful project if you let us build this. But as far as being square peg and round hole, that was because your ordinances are, no offense, they're very old. They don't make any sense for this type of development. That was the square peg. We're trying to work with you on that. And of course, we're trying to work by making the project work from a buffer standpoint. Transition of density, we believe we are transitional density from the Temple, from the multifamily, from Telegraph Road. In fact, by the way, we've done the research. Bloomfield, Birmingham Farms is 2.25 units per acre. They're not 1.7 units per acre. Why should we be held to that? I don't quite understand why 1.7 is required after 360 feet, but the simple fact of the matter is Birmingham Farms doesn't meet that requirement. We will be happy to work with Birmingham Farms, the HOA, the new HOA. I've already informed them, the previous board, we would be happy to continue honoring whatever agreements we've had, but we're more than happy to sit down with them and talk about things as we go forward. That's not a problem whatsoever. We're happy to do it. They know where we are, and we're more than happy to sit down and discuss whatever remains to be discussed. And then as far as preserving character, we believe we are preserving character. This is no different than the 20-some projects I showed you on the aerial. That is the character of Telegraph Road. That's the character of Bloomfield Township. It just so happens to be the single-family neighborhood behind us, which I think we're buffering adequately. So I know you guys can't speak. I don't know if I missed anything, but I wanted to address everything that I heard about the units. Yeah. So from a density perspective, 2 units, 1 or 2 units won't kill a project, of course. 5, 10, 15 units, obviously that totally affects the project. We're willing to have that conversation. It's kind of hard to do that, while you're up on the dais. But I don't want you to think we're inflexible in that case. If there are areas where it makes sense, I can see the corner that you're talking about.
I think the corner makes sense, and it would reduce the density a little bit.
Okay. Okay. So I think what I'm saying is 38. It's not 38 or nothing. We go home. It's really hard to kind of horse trade in that respect. But if there's something that makes sense in that respect, we understand and we can be flexible.
Okay, yeah. So I would assume if this were to go, Mr. Clark, I would assume if this then goes to
the communication is
board,
about fewer units, I'll permit it.
Yeah. No, wait,
Or
let me finish this though, because I assume then if you're agreeable with that, by the time this would go to the board, if it goes to the board, you're going to have the revised plan with some units knocked off.
Yes, and I would assume that the
And you're
board,
really going to try to make that happen.
yeah, I would assume that, thank you. I would assume that the Board of Trustees would want to. I assume that would be something we discuss at the Board of Trustees. So yes, we can show something. That's true.
And I just suggested that area because it looks to be like it'd be very easily done.
Yeah.
And you just have a nice round circle going.
I agree.
Okay.
If I could add one more thing, the trees have come up a couple of times. We're not going to die on that sword. We would, as far as the tree variance, the tree replacement, if we could pay into a fund for whatever we can't fit on site, we're willing to do that. Of course, we're going to try to upsize as much as we can on the site, but we would need the variance as far as being able to use that in that buffer and along the Temple property. So I know that's come up. I don't want that to be a hang-up for this development.
Any other questions? Chris, do you have more questions of the applicant?
Sure. First,
or anyone else on the board? So let Chris go first.
So I'm not going to hijack
down there.
your board.
We'll work our way across.
I do want to echo what my colleague here, Carol, has said. I have had experience with Robertson Brothers. Some of the things that were said specifically about what your designs are and that's not fair. It's not truthful. It's emotional. You guys have been in the township and been dedicated to our township for a long time. Whether people don't like what you do or not is regardless of this. I think you guys deserve better. So thank you for being township residents and investing in our township. So I do appreciate that. Regardless if I vote, I want you guys to know that, okay? Just putting it out there. So a couple residents talked about specifically how you guys were willing to invest in a drainage study for Birmingham Farms. I heard a couple residents say you guys were going to fix that. I don't remember that ever being a condition of any of the things. Can you please elaborate on what you guys were helping Birmingham Farms on?
Yeah, what we agreed to was to do an engineering study.
Yeah, it was in the minutes. I saw that.
Yeah, which we've done, and I mentioned that kind of earlier. That should be done in the next 2 weeks, as I mentioned. Certainly before the board, we'll have that completed. As far as any kind of improvements, no, I don't really know what we can do, but what I will say, the fact that we are taking that water and absorbing it into our project, that is really solving some of their issues there. So in that respect, I guess we are fixing some of their drainage issues, but no, we haven't had any discussions, and I don't even know where you'd really start. I mean, it's maintenance, and it's just that's kind of the situation it is.
And the reason I asked is I knew that you guys were agreed to do the study and pay for it as part of your goodwill to the neighborhood and try to continue to be a good neighbor.
Yes.
I didn't want any neighbors to think that you guys were going to do the improvements based on what that study finds. If that was maintenance issues or that, I wanted that to be very clear on what your requirements were. So that's why I asked. I also agree that you have civil engineers and people that are going to put their name and their reputation and their liability on the line for this project. So that's why he doesn't want to speak. But but in all seriousness,
Smart strategy.
I'm not a civil engineer. You're not a civil engineer. We hire professionals to do professional work, and we utilize their credentials and their expertise. That is why we don't sit here and do that. That's why we have lawyers. We have them for their expertise. So while plenty of members of our community talked about that, I believe that the standard that's being set by the current water runoff and water mitigation will be an improvement based on what experts are telling me. And it's not just your experts, it's the township experts that we pay. Our engineering, our third-party engineering, which HRC, are all going to review this to ensure it's held to the highest standard as part of the building code. So I don't have an issue with that. I do appreciate you guys talking about trees in the backyard. Are you guys going to try to ask for that to be part of your calibration?
Honestly, no. That's not something, sure, that'd be great, but no. That's not something we typically do. It's just additional trees that we do. The one thing I do want to, and I'm sure Darian was telling me this, I don't want to say the caveat, but we do want to make sure that we can have the ability to work with Duell and Associates at the end to do the full calibration before we decide if there's any kind of requirement to the tree fund. So that's one thing that I assume it'll be okay because we did it at Villas of Bloomfield Grove.
I think that's standard, right? Because after at the end, they'll figure out a survey tree.
Just want to make sure that was on the record.
Yeah, I think that would be standard of what most projects would be anyways, right? For surveys.
Yeah, Tim's absolutely correct. That is what they did at the Villas, and it worked out very well because in the beginning, they used that opportunity towards the end of the project to do infill planting where they could, and that worked out very well.
So then it could reduce the amount of money you have to pay into that tree fund.
Correct. Yes.
Perfect. No, and that makes sense to me, and I think that's kind of standard practice anyway, so. Let me make sure. So I guess I'll go on this. So we keep talking about density. All the residents talk about density. So the two things that are things that I don't like part of your plan or that I would like to see changed. I agree that single-family units are better than houses connected. I believe the market has done it, and I've seen you guys do it before. So I understand you want to build what they want, that the customer wants, and what creates the best value for them. I agree with you. I don't want to see dense housing. I would like to see more than 14 feet between homes, and I would like to see that density reduced. What that number is up to my colleagues and how we determine it, and I would love to work with you on how you can make that happen. Because again, you want us to create some type of yes tonight that then you then take to the Board of Trustees for my other colleagues to go over, but I need to give you a guideline of where we need to be. So I need you to help work with me on this. Okay. And again, I'm asking you to change a plan that I know you guys have spent 2 years doing. So it's not necessarily the fairest thing, but as you continue to be a good neighbor and work with your neighbors, as you continue to have said the whole time, how can we get there?
So we've looked at it, obviously. We've taken a look at some alternative scenarios. I think if we are to expand it to maybe to 17 feet separation, and what I'd like to focus on really is the perimeter, where we are adjacent to the neighbors. Because I think that is probably where the pain point is. I think if we go to like 17 feet, we'd probably lose 2 units, one on the north and one on the west. I think we're willing to do that. Of course, that's then compounded with removing them in the corner, so that's additional units. So now we keep losing units. I think from our perspective, if we were to do either one of those and lost 2 units, just being completely upfront, that would be something that would be an acceptable outcome.
So I just want to, Tim, I'm not trying to put you on the spot for this, so I do apologize, and again, I apologize to you guys. I know you guys spent a ton of work on this. I truly do. So on the north side, if we go 17 feet, we'll possibly lose 2 units. What about that on that west side? Because technically, those are still buffering the neighborhood. Is that both sides?
We'd lose one on the north and then one on the west. Yes, so it would be 2 total.
Okay,
Could you kind of move it then in the corner?
And then that doesn't
make
really,
it look more-
that doesn't really address the corner. The corner doesn't, I can't really gain any separation. We'd have to lose a couple units for the corner. So I'd like to hold at 36, and we've got 2 different ways of doing that.
With then a 17-foot separation.
Yeah.
You're willing to commit to that?
Yeah, and I think we're willing to commit. I'm speaking for my owners here, but.
He didn't yell at you yet, so that must be a good thing.
And you want a decision tonight, I would think. So.
Yes, we do. So if we could, and of course, we'd have to do some more site planning, and Board Member Rosati, I think we can maybe still accommodate what you're kind of looking for, and I know and maybe that last one is maybe kind of affected a little bit. So maybe we can do both things, but what I'm thinking is if we could do 17 feet just on the north and the western perimeter separation, and agree to 36 units overall, I think we'd be acceptable to that. And then try to see what we can do in the corner while we're doing that exercise.
I'm not saying that I appreciate the fact that you guys, throughout your project, you've been given feedback about density. And while you've made other changes when it was coming to trees, moving the units further away so that there was more of a buffer to the north and the west, the one concession you guys have not made throughout this progress is though. So I want to applaud you for that and thank you. I don't know if that's my number yet, but I'm going to yield some of my time to some of the other board members.
Do you have any questions?
I think it's a wonderful project. It obviously fits a need in the community. I do have a concern about the density, which has been well voiced. So that's it.
Thank you.
I'll go along with my colleagues.
I'll just have some comments and then a couple of things. I definitely agree with the single-story homes. I think there is a need for that as people are aging in this area and people would like that option. I also believe it's a good use of Telegraph Road, to be honest. A busy road like that for this type of development would make sense. And I also very much empathize and sympathize with the Temple's concern about safety, especially today. So I understand all of those needs. But when I think of the residents and being a resident myself, I think of the density. And so just to echo my other colleagues here, the density is very concerning to me. Because of that, when I went and looked at the area, the buffer for the current residents there, and I know people are spending much more time at home these days, especially since the pandemic. People are living in homes, staying in their backyards. They like that space. And so I was wondering, when you're talking about the trees as buffers, when you're looking at the trees that are going around the perimeter, what are you planning on putting there? Because there were comments that there were going to be arborvitaes or things like that. So I just wanted to make sure that we understand what kind of barrier or buffer that you're looking at putting around the perimeter that would back up to the residents in that area.
Sure, they'll be evergreen, like spruce trees. 14 feet is what we've agreed to, which is, like I said, considerably more than what we would normally do. But those that'd be a double row of 14-foot evergreen trees. So it'd be basically, from day one, a screen. Yeah.
And that will be updated and shown on the site plan prior to Township Board.
14.
Correct.
14 foot, yes.
Yeah, so that will be updated on the plan.
Yes. We will change the landscape plans, yes.
So just my concerns are just the buffers and the density.
Yeah, and I appreciate all that. So again, we really wanted to have that double. When we were able to move those units back, we were able to get the double row and all of the storm structures in there, which was very useful. So I want to your point, and I don't want it to be lost, we had moved those back 20 feet, those units from when we kind of first started. So it's important to us, the buffer as well. You're right, we haven't talked about separation. That was the one thing we haven't, so that's what I think is something we can discuss here. But I think we've really tried our best to create that buffer that you're talking about.
I have a couple of comments. So I think, first of all, there have been a lot of significant points made about our one-family residential clustering option. When I first met with the staff, I asked how many units they could get under that option, and it's 38. So I thought that was important to keep in mind, because when you look at this, the first reaction is there's too many units on it. But then when I looked at that ordinance, and I did quite a bit of reading today with the American Planning Association and the history of cluster options and why, there is a change in the density from the major thoroughfare, and that's generally because the cluster is supposed to be next to public transportation, like in Salt Lake City. My son's on a light rail line that's a cluster option, or a park, or a community center. So that's why the units are up against that end, and we don't have that here. So our ordinance doesn't fit this well. So we've got 2 rows of trees that are acting as a buffer. We have a setback that is greater than it's single family. And I think I've heard enough tonight about some of the changes that the developer's willing to make that I'm very open-minded about it, would be favorable for it.
Okay, so now to me. I understand exactly what you're trying to do here. I understand it, through all the years I've watched, during one decade, what everybody wants is 2-story colonials, and, I want it on a 5-acre lot, right? And so when you look at how Bloomfield developed, a lot of it originally started with these big acreage lots. Then over time, people went, ugh, that's a lot of work, right? So we start paring it down, okay, a subdivision on this size lot. And it keeps going. But what has happened is now you have people living in their communities that need to downsize to a ranch for medical reasons, or just because they're old, and like me, I don't want to do stairs anymore, okay? So they don't want a big yard that they have to take care of. They don't want any of that. Their kids are gone, this is just for them type of thing. And there has been shown a real demand for this type of product throughout Michigan, especially because people want to stay in their community. They don't want to have to move out of Bloomfield to get this kind of living arrangement. And this is the kind of parcel that you would look for to do this. It's a parcel on a heavily traveled road, okay? It's got some topography issues, some water issues, wetland issues, that type of thing. It's adjacent to really non-residential uses, yet it's zoned for single-family residential. And it's highly unlikely, and I say, I think it's impossible, that somebody's going to walk in here and develop an R1 subdivision, okay? Nobody's going to buy those homes R1 and move their family in. This kind of property is best used for this type of a project that tends to be older people or, you know, a professional person that doesn't want anything, just zooms in and out of the house and travels half the time or whatever. Okay, so I get what you're doing here, all right? I also understand everything you residents are saying, okay? But the bottom line is, this is vacant property and it's going to develop. And when it develops, it gets clear cut. That's just the reality of development, okay? And while it's being developed, you are going to have impacts from that development. But we can't deny somebody the right to use their land for those reasons, okay? And in addition, when these units are done, their price point, they're going to have a positive impact on the market value of your homes. So, and I also agree that the ordinance has not been brought up to date to deal with the changes in market demand for housing. And it's something that the township is going to be looking at. That having been said, I don't know.
And that is in the master plan and, the strategic plan, so that's mentioned several times. So.
Yeah, so, I mean, I understand you don't like the project. I think it's one that is needed in the township. I think the location picked is appropriate. I think they've done things to try to have less impact on you when the development is done in terms of the buffering that they're going to provide to you. And I think when all's said and done, you're going to go, oh, wow, this isn't so bad. I've seen this happen everywhere.
You're going to be living next to it. Sorry to interrupt you.
You know what? I wouldn't mind living next to it, okay? So, and the thing is, if you don't like it, you don't buy a unit there.
This isn't relevant,
all right?
so let's, we're in a good pace here. That's not relevant. Not whether you want to live next to it, Carol.
Providing a form of housing that some people want,
Yeah.
okay? You may not want it, but there is a market demand for it, and there's a market demand for it in the community for people that live here and want to downsize. You don't have to agree with me, okay? We're not having a communication here. This is back at the board level, okay?
Yeah.
And I can also tell you, based on my experience, that if there is a lawsuit, it's highly unlikely that the R1 zoning classification would be upheld by a court, okay? So I don't think you should focus on that either. I don't know what the board wants to do. I don't know if anybody's ready to make a motion or what.
I would love to make a little more discussion on the density.
Okay.
Before I agree to anything. So, again, as I said before, I appreciate you guys working on the density. 36 is still high compared to all the other numbers that have come to us, including what you guys have done in Hickory Grove. And again, I know you're trying to keep the price point at a different level. I can appreciate that. But at the same token, the community continues to speak in a certain way. I want to see closer to 30, and I'm not saying 30 units. Can we get to 32?
No, I mean, we kill the project. It doesn't work. There's no justification. We're 2.5 acre, they're 2.5 acre right next door to it.
Again, we're trying to be respectful of everybody's time. So you're right, they are 2.27 or 2.25, whatever the number you guys used. If you did 36 units is what you said, what is that density?
I mean, we're also not in the middle of the neighborhood like they are. We're on Telegraph, so the standards shouldn't, well, there's one house on Telegraph.
Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like, rather than kind of going back and forth over the number, is someone prepared to make a motion that we could then at least discuss? I would rather make a motion at this point than be going back and forth and negotiating the number.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a good use of time at this point in the evening.
Are you all looking at me?
I'm not willing to make a motion at 36.
I understand,
So-
but I need to
Okay.
see where everyone's at, unless everyone, I mean, we want to, I guess I'd rather-
36 is pretty dense.
Okay.
That's not much off the dime. I know that you need a motion. At that number, I'm not comfortable making the motion.
okay.
Well, I guess then how we have to start is I'll make a motion on 36 units, and we'll see what happens. And if that,
Can you go to 33?
Well, she's gonna let her.
We're less density than every other cluster along Telegraph. I think we're having a hard time understanding it. We meet your zoning ordinance that allows 38.
you can't talk anymore.
So
Nobody
I
gets to
do
talk.
appreciate what you're saying, Tim, but again, you're taking a different stance on what the cluster housing is saying. So we're trying to work with you as well as, I know you guys are working with us. I can appreciate that, I really do. But the cluster housing, as written from the ordinance, now you're disputing that you don't believe the ordinance matches current market conditions. I'm still looking at what the ordinance says. So I truly can appreciate that.
Yes, she's almost there.
Oh, wait, we got,
Well, it sounds like nothing's going to pass here tonight.
yeah.
Okay.
Wait a minute.
I'm going to start with,
Do you have something to say, Tim?
It sounds like 36 is probably not going to work for a couple. We're willing to go to 35. I think that that's probably where you know, our bottom line is, if you will, in that respect. Probably makes the houses a little bit more expensive, but we're willing to do that in good faith of working with you here.
And I want to commend you. Thank you for at least coming to the table with a different number. I do, thank you.
So I would support 35.
I would too. Well,
not.
it's kind of tricky because it's really not, there's not really, okay, I'm going to do it with this one. With respect to the request for variance to allow the 3.4 units per acre in the portion of parcel outside the 360 feet, exceeding the 1.7 acres maximum, I'm going to move to approve that because the applicant has demonstrated practical difficulty. However, I will approve that based upon the condition that the units are reduced to no more than 35. The applicant has demonstrated practical difficulty because of the unique circumstances to the land that make it very difficult to develop. The location of the property on Telegraph Road with its significant traffic volumes, the change in topography throughout the site, the existence of the wetlands and other wet areas, and the fact that those wetlands aren't even regulated by Eagle as being valuable wetlands, and also the proximity in the adjacent land uses, which include a lot of multiple family. You've got a senior housing, and not that far away, a large commercial area. I think all those impact the ability to develop this property just straight R1. I think the development under the conventional zoning would prohibit a reasonable return on investment because of those unique characteristics that I've talked about. And I believe that the value of these homes will in fact be a positive impact on the value of the adjacent residential homes. And the fact that they're a single story, they will have less of an impact on any adjacent homes. I believe it's not self-created. The characteristics applicable to the property were not caused by the applicant. They existed before the applicant came into the picture, and they would impact anybody trying to develop this property. And the property owner has a right to develop the land. I would also, actually, I've never done this, but I would adopt some of the points also in the applicant's application as to what the practical difficulty is. I find them to be persuasive. So, oh, I don't have a thing. I don't have anything else, do I? On that one.
Which one?
On
green?
just that variance. No. Well, if motion is approved, there really isn't anything on that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So that would be my motion.
Support. But that doesn't go to any other ones. We're just doing that one right now?
I'm just doing
Yeah,
this,
she's
because
doing that
if
one, so
this
it's right.
fails.
Yeah, nothing
we're kinda
else,
done
nothing else
here.
matters. So we have a motion and support. Let's discuss the motion.
And I did mention the no more than 35 units, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I keep going back to, under our current ordinance, they can have 38. This is a different layout, I understand that. But I think all of the reasons given regarding the need, the market conditions, and the fact that, to me, there's a two-row tree buffer of 14 feet, and 50 feet from the property line to those units makes that buffer meaningful. So I'm okay with the 35. And all those other things are true. You've got the safety of the temple. I think you've got to be very careful with trying to address fewer units when we allow 38.
Yeah, I'd have to say, it's hard to claim that the developer is not trying to work with the township and with the neighboring community. I mean, this 14-foot evergreen buffer, 2 rows, I mean, that's something, being at these meetings every month, I never see any developer provide anybody under any circumstances. So this is beyond generous from what we see
And they're willing to do it, prior to construction.
Yeah, prior to construction. That's just like, I've been now serving 3 years, and I'm here every month. I've never heard any proposal like that, ever. And these guys are saying they haven't either. So I can see that they're trying to work with us. We've now had a drop of 3 units in the development. The reality is, folks, is that, they are the property owners. They have a right to develop it. And let's just say they say, forget you guys, you're just unreasonable. We're not going to do this job. You're not going to get anybody who's going to come in and then take possession of that property and try to work with you. I know you don't feel like you've been worked with, but let me tell you, we witness this all the time. These guys are really bending over backwards to try and be good neighbors. And that's the people that we need in this township. We don't want to destroy Bloomfield, but we can't stop the future. And we can't stop the needs, the evolving needs of our own township residents who one after another are saying, I need a home like this. I don't want to leave Bloomfield Township. At least this is being done by a developer that's trying to be sensitive to the entire community, to these township residents who want a safe place to live. And I got to tell you, I don't think we're going to find a better deal. So I'm in support of this just so we can get some closure on this and move forward and get something done. I mean, that's what we do in this township. We get stuff done. We listen to the community, we listen to the people who are involved, and we make responsible decisions for the benefit of the township. That's what we're doing here tonight.
I'd like to see it lower. But that's it.
Yeah, this is a very tough one. This is a very tough one because I absolutely see the need for this type of development. I mean, my mother is one. She's 80 years old. She's living in a huge house. She wants to downsize. She wants one level, and she doesn't want to leave the community. So I completely understand that. I also know that I agree with my colleague here that this property is going to be developed, and what will it be developed for? And on Telegraph Road, there's very limited options. On the other side, I am a resident here. I love this township. I love the space. I love the green space. I love having my privacy. But things are changing, and so it is a very difficult place to be. The density scares me. But I also feel, just sitting here and just thinking it through, that the developer has made some concessions, and I know that those things, although we don't like to talk about the financial impact about that, but there is a financial impact with that. And with the lower density, hopefully that will help with, a little bit more of the green space. They also offered to, and I'm thinking out loud here, but some of it, but they're also offered to help put trees on residents' properties if that is requested, at not including that in the additional trees. 35, I'm not quite sure if the units, my gut would say I would like a little bit less. I was thinking more like 34, but anyway, that's just my thoughts. So as we're preparing to, vote, I just wanted to share where my head was with that, because this is a very difficult thing. And as a resident, please know how sensitive we are to wanting to keep the character of Bloomfield Township, but also we have to, look at where things are going.
And I just keep going back to, under a cluster development, you can put them all together. You can put them right next to each other. And you can get 38 units.
On top of
No,
courthouses.
Effie.
But that would be permitted as of right.
Right. They wouldn't need it.
You're right. It's a right of theirs to do by our ordinance, by law, by what it states for the first 360 feet, which would affect your neighbors. There are neighbors that have the first and second house, and they would have more dense than the rest of the neighborhood. So again, when we look at the holistic, there are neighbors that would be affected by it and have more houses if we did that. Again, I do applaud Robertson Brothers. Again, easy math, they just gave up $3 million without the upcharge. So again, I'm still not.
Some of their expressions aren't really good right now.
Yeah, I haven't seen a smile out of Mr. Robertson, but at the same token, he's a businessman. He understands. And again, he does value the community.
Well,
he lives here. I don't want to take anything away from you. I want you to understand that. So I know there's a motion. We're talking about the motion. So
Yep.
Thank you very much, by the way, Andrea. I'm not trying to take a pound of flesh, but I'm still having a tough time with 35. Again, I wanted 33.
And why? Why is that? Help me understand why both
Because,
of you
again,
are
we're
hung
still-
up on the number.
We're hung up on a number because, again, the R1 classification, if they developed it like single-family homes, which is, they're trying to develop like single-family homes, would be 32 feet apart and would be 16,000 square feet per lot, not including the retention pond. The retention pond is truly one of the issues with this lot. They can't take that away. So if I took the retention pond away as part of my even if giving it with that, with my density calculations, they're still at 27 homes, right? Like, we're not
Right, but
including
what are you worried about? Noise? Are you worried about, drainage? Are you worried about, what are you worried about? Because there are so many homes.
That's a good question. I think for me, it's the buffer, it would be the
Okay.
sound, essentially the sound.
But it's next to Telegraph, and it's a residential development.
I get it. I completely understand. And, and I everything that Jocelyn just said, I completely agree with. Yeah, the trees, maybe some of the larger trees, the canopy, whatever. But I heard them say they'll work out with their neighbors, specific tree placement that can eventually appease some of the change that's going on for the most impacted neighbors.
Yeah, it's a residential development on Telegraph. We're not talking about a cement plant. It's not,
Yeah, that's.
it's not intensive.
I agree with Brian.
No, Effie.
You're not part of the
Effie,
program
I
here.
get it, we keep saying Telegraph, it's in the
Effie,
neighborhood.
Effie, I really appreciate you.
I'm sorry,
Okay.
why is it Telegraph?
No, Effie, I appreciate it. Just like I did the same thing to this gentleman. I'm not trying to be rude. We're respectful of everybody's time, including these people, okay? Sorry.
Well, and I laid this out. This is where we deliberate. So I realize you don't agree with what she said, but we're now trying to make a decision.
Yeah, we're having our
Yeah,
discussion.
so we're
amongst ourselves.
talking about ourselves. I know it's hard to listen to us because you don't agree. I get that.
There's a Public Meetings Act. We have to speak these things in front of you. So we're sorry about it, but this is how we deliberate and make decisions. This is the law.
And I'm just trying to help us get past the number.
Well,
I think we're too fixated on the number and the why. So what is the impact to the community that we're concerned about? Is it fire?
I'd like to
Is it-
see more of it off of the upper northwest corner, just a
Well-
bit. But you could pull them out, and I think
And-
that 3 or 4 probably does the trick for that.
Well, my concern about the number is not so much about, when people are talking about the noise and things like that off of Telegraph, and that it is on Telegraph. My concern is it does go into the residential area. Of course, it's buttoned up to it and it is on Telegraph, but because a lot of these residents' homes back up to it, that's where my concern is. That whole buffer, when I went and viewed it, I literally looked through people's backyards. I guess okay, I could get a feel for what that would look like. I know they're gonna put 2 rows of trees, But that was where my number came from, because I thought maybe if we reduce the numbers, it could have less impact on some of the residents if we reduce the number of units. Like, okay, so like what Carol had talked about with, that little offshoot there, there's residents whose homes butt up to that. So that would give a little bit of relief. Not everyone's going to get that kind of relief if we reduce the units, but that would give some relief to some if we had less. That's kind of where my head was going as well.
Okay.
With more green space is too. So with less units means more green space, and that is something that we have said as a township that we wanted to maintain.
But because it's a
possibly.
cluster, you have a nice green space in the middle that if you go the other configurations, you lose that. That's part of the reason, one of the benefits of a cluster development, because I even thought that too. Take some of them off the entrance there and move them to the center, but then you lose the green space. And that's a negligible improvement. I think we're too fixated on the number.
What, I think Tim may have another offer.
Well, I'm looking at it, it sounds like we're down to 35. And if I'm just talking about the northern and the western perimeters. I think we could get over 20 foot of separation, probably even up to 25 foot of separation for the northern and the western at 35 units, if I'm doing the math correctly in my head. So that
25?
Correct, and it'd be at least 20, I think, probably up to 25.
Okay.
Now, that doesn't really affect the northwest corner, if you will, so, maybe it's a combination of the two, which would get you kind of that buffer in that northwest corner, and now we're talking about 20-foot separation. I think we can accommodate all that. We'd have to do a lot of site planning, but my thought right here, at the podium is if we go to a 20-foot building separation for the north and west, and agree to look at adding a buffer or moving like Unit 13 off the northwest corner, we'd be at 35, but I think we're getting much more generous building separation, as well as kind of fixing. I see everybody's eyes going to Unit 13. I am now that you pointed out. We can move that, get some open space there, but we'd be at 35 at that point, and get you, I think, a lot more open space.
Well, and I guess, I think some of the concern with density was that, okay, there's a house, and the house will look out in the back and see two houses.
Yeah.
But I look out my backyard, there's 3 houses behind me, because I've got acreage, I don't think it matters in the long run.
I don't either.
Well, one thing which you just made me just think about, with the one single-story home, that is a good thing.
Yeah, it's low.
Yep.
That's low, so that is a plus.
Yes.
The
That
20
is a plus.
feet too would be
Yeah,
helpful in that area.
getting that
And then-
separation will make it so you don't even have 2 houses behind you, probably.
I think that statement of the footage between the units, or the houses, I should say, is a better way of looking at it instead of the number,
Yep.
the space between them.
Yep. And those were my two, when I first looked at it, was the space between, so that's been,
Space. Those
so you got a
spaces
new
do it.
number,
Right.
and then
Those are the
we've
two
got
we
some
had.
compromise on the total. I don't,
I'm good.
so you're good?
The 20-foot update in the space, so.
Tim, again,
Tim?
20 foot on the north and on the west side is the minimum side yard setback for all those units.
Is that right?
And then your interior as well as along the water may still be at that 14.
It's like being on Apollo 13 doing the calculations.
I'm just saying, if I'm wrong with this, I'm gonna hear about it.
Yeah, because you're gonna cost them a unit, and that's on you, not me.
My slide rule, I know I got it.
He's got to get to the lem before the.
Oh, man.
If everything,
We'll try really hard to be 20 feet.
if everything from, say, 19 through 38 stays the same, I believe we can give 20-foot separation, be done, and we would limit it at 35. Regardless, even if we could fit 36, we would agree to 35.
Not the one in the middle.
But nothing else, everything else 19 through 38.
So again,
would
19
remain
to
the same.
20, not 19 to 18 would still be,
Okay, yeah.
19 through 38.
So 14 through 18, 1 through 18
Would be 20 feet.
will be 20 feet.
Oh, okay.
and then 18 and 19, are those gonna be 20 feet?
Yeah.
Okay. I
Um,
don't know, because you got your angle.
Maybe not.
Again, I'm site planning.
You're gonna do it.
On the midpoint of the unit from front to back, how's that?
It already is, but good for you. I appreciate you.
So 1 through
18.
18, 20.
20 feet.
20 feet side.
And so
20.
then, and then it's still going to be 14 on the remainder?
Yes.
Okay.
They're not all 14. I mean, a lot of them are angles, and I think looking at 19, I don't know if we can't get 20, between 18 and 19 at that corner. Obviously, you can see it's got quite a bit of distance, especially where it's backing up to the neighborhood.
Well, but it's,
Yeah, so 1 through 18.
And
1 through
13's
18.
coming out. 13's coming out.
well, probably.
He's got to come out to.
Three are coming out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now, what they're going to do is renumber all the units.
That's what we're saying. That's what we're saying. When you're talking about the numbers, you're referring to this.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the corner unit, the
Right.
the northwest
Right.
Yes.
corner unit.
And that's going to give them space.
Then that,
Yeah. I'm watching Jim.
so actually, we're still in
You
discussion
good?
of the motion, too, just so.
Yeah,
you-
I don't even think we had a second.
No, we did. We're just,
Oh, we
we're
did?
discussing, yeah, so we can we,
Okay, so that would just be on the
you're just.
variance for the,
Density. Yeah.
well, it's the density not being all in the front and stuff.
Right.
So that would be up to 35 units. So
Right.
if we pass that, then we can move on to the other ones.
Well, I guess that's, I'm guessing people are voting on that based on the new distance between the units, correct?
Yes.
So we're,
Okay, so
Okay.
can I amend my motion?
Second.
sure.
All right, I want to amend my motion to also address the request for variances to the side yard setbacks. And I would move to approve those variances for lots 1 through 18 to allow a 20-foot setback versus 35, and for lots 19 through 38 to have a 14-foot side yard setback.
Building separation, not setback.
Right, 35.
No, it's a 14-foot side-to-side setback between clusters. That's the one I'm referring to.
Okay,
Side yard setback between units.
between units.
So it's the
You're saying 20
distance between the.
Yeah, the one that's,
Residences.
yeah, that shows like
Up
that.
to
So
unit
it's the distance
35.
between- Yeah, so we've got,
38's out.
huh?
Up to unit 35.
Well,
Because
no,
it's
because we're
35
working off of
units.
this plan.
Yeah.
And that the record should reflect that the motions we make are referring
plan
to
as
the unit
submitted.
numbers on this plan that we're
Submitted,
looking
right.
at.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and for the reasons for practical difficulty would be the same as I've already stated.
Okay.
So that would
1
be
through
those
18.
two.
1 through 18 on this plan.
Yep, 1
Is
through
20
18,
feet in
20
between.
feet, and the remainder would be, 19 through 38 would be the 14-foot.
19 through 35.
Well, but it's 38 on this plan.
On this plan.
Okay, that's why I'm going to keep it like that, so you know what we're talking about.
And then,
I would agree to those changes to the motion that I seconded. So
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we have an amendment to the motion to now address the side yard setbacks in a second. Any discussion on the amended motion?
do we need to say it's the north and west border? Because obviously they may have to change the unit numbering.
Well,
based
that's
on
why
the new site plan.
I'm making it based upon
Okay.
this
I
plan.
just want to make sure so that.
Yeah, so they'll
We
know
are holding them
exactly
to that
what
standard
we're
and they
talking
understand,
about.
that's all.
You got it.
I think those were the two toughest ones.
Ready to vote?
Any other discussion on the amended motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Roll call. Kalinsky.
Nay.
O'Donnell.
Yes.
Ford.
Yes.
Giagrande.
Yes.
Henry.
Yes.
And Rosati.
Yes.
Okay, so motion passes 5-1.
So partial congratulations on partially getting some of the variances you need, but those are the foundational ones. Do you want to keep going, Carol?
Oh,
since
lucky
you're-
me. Okay. All right. I'm going to try to combine some of these things.
Yeah.
Use your little colorful cheat sheet I gave you with all the green.
I
and the-
can't read what's under the green. It's too dark.
I'm sorry, I tried.
Okay, well, I know. Okay, so I'm going to start with, we did that one.
You want me to do it?
You want to do
We
it?
did one.
I didn't do any.
You can, yeah, I was going to start, but have at it if you'd like.
Okay, for the 15-foot corner yard setback being reduced to 30, from 30 feet. For units 14 32, 33, 38.
What?
The fifth,
You're on 4.
I'm on 4. Well, technically, we already did the other ones.
Oh, that's the 15-foot corner side yard
Oh,
setback.
we technically
Yeah.
have 2 as well. And can I put these together, or is that okay?
Yeah, I'd run
Okay, the
down
other
all
one
of them.
is, so.
Combining
that one,
is encouraged.
Combining, the 13-foot front yard setback reduced from the 40-foot setback for unit 23, 25 through 30. And, as well as, the 10-foot natural feature setback reduced from the required 25 feet for units 20 through 31. The cluster housing option allows for the maximum of 10 acres. They are seeking to go over the 10 acres. So exceeding the 10 acre by 2.83 acres. And then a tree replacement of 2,210 reduced by the required 3,761.45, and for replacement trees to be located in the green belt. We are not going to include the trees that are placed on the neighbors' properties, as well as we will be reviewing this at the very end to determine true calibration, and you will be paying into the tree fund for the remainder. So, in regards to the appeal at 7,200, everything I stated for the variances, I move the variances be approved as requested for those. Based on the information, the applicant did demonstrate all standards for practical difficulty because compliance with strict letter of the ordinance would be unduly burdensome because of the setback from the road, the fact that it's a corner lot, and the reasonable use of the lot. There's no injustice to the adjoining neighbors because it's going to be screened with 14-foot evergreens minimum, and the midpoint of these structures are 17 feet. So they'll be screened, as well as the additional screening that you guys have already agreed to. The unique circumstances of this property are the fact that it is on Telegraph, and there are water issues that limit where we can put that retention pond. Some of these are not self-created because of the fact of the configuration of this property, the fact that it already has water issues on the property, and the area where the wetlands are. If these are approved, all permits must be submitted within 1 year, and an additional evergreen planting may be required.
Support?
One question. Did we also get the 15-foot corner side yard setback for those 3 lots?
Yes.
Okay.
That was the first thing as I kind of worked through these.
And did we add the condition about planting the berm areas as soon as possible after beginning construction? Did you?
No, but I would love to make an amendment to my motion that we are going to be planting those double row of evergreen prior to construction of the home. So while you guys are doing I know you guys are going to be doing your site plan and going to be putting in your drainage for your stormwater management along the end. I would like to be able to put those evergreens in prior to construction of the first home.
It's the model.
With the model.
Okay,
Fine.
got it.
Did I misunderstand that we're not getting credit for the caliper of the trees on the berm?
No, you are. Well, how about the motion says that?
Just, no, everything's fine.
It's in the motion, but we haven't voted, so
So,
we could change our mind.
so the motion says that. The motion says you do not get credit for the ones in the neighbors' properties.
Neighbors, you're voluntarily planning.
And I'm waiting for a second.
Second.
Okay,
So we have an amended motion and a second. Any discussion on the amended motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion passes.
All right.
All right, with respect to the property in question, I would move to grant the permission requests for the 4-foot by 4-foot by 6-foot high piers with 2 18-foot wide and 6-foot high gates located in the Telegraph Road frontage, as well as the decorative veneer walls with signage ranging from 4 feet to 6 feet
Well,
in overall height and located in the Telegraph Road frontage, and a 4-foot high fence located in the Telegraph Road frontage. Because the applicant has demonstrated compliance with section 42-7.6 standards, those structures are compatible with the type of development appropriate for the type of development and will not hinder or discourage the adjacent use of property.
A motion and support, any discussion?
Just small discussion. They're having an 8-foot berm, and we're gonna put a 6-foot wall.
Yeah, I'm okay with the 8 feet.
You are, okay,
Yeah.
okay, well then I'll amend it for the 8-foot on the one section.
We've had some significant concessions here, I think we're,
That's the least of our significant.
yeah.
I'm not saying they're not, but
No, but I'm saying, I think that's okay.
Okay,
So is it 8 now, or is that what you're saying?
it sounds like we want
As
8.
submitted.
As submitted.
As submitted, okay. So I have a motion and a second, any discussion, further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes.
We're done.
Okay. Do I have
Motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn?
What about the, did we talk about the, oh, I'm sorry, you did call it, the walls. Those were the-
Did you
We gotta
want, did you want to say anything else, Tim?
Yes,
talk right
thank you,
afterwards.
thank you for your time. This is, obviously a long process, and we appreciate you working with us.
And I'll just say this, I know a lot of people in the community have left. I know you worked really hard on this. Your organization, was super. Thanks to the developer for all your hard work and the staff. I know this took a lot of time. You could see it in the minutes, and, I appreciate everybody's hard work on it, so,
And we hope you continue to work with all the residents.
yeah.
Let me speak. As a 40-year resident, thank you very much for this consideration. And if the resident wants to move there, I really appreciate you moving forward on this.
Do you get a deal?
Jim was going to buy 13. No, he doesn't get that.
You should double the price to him.
Well, that's the Clark unit. Go.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Oh, we have a motion to adjourn in a second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.
Aye, aye, aye.